Chapter 76. Miss Juncha. The four hooligans who were just arrogant and fearless, now wilted like eggplants hit by frost. Juncha looked at the four of them coldly. How many troubles have you caused this year? Then he waved his hand and ordered the police officers to take everyone away. This is a restaurant, not a place to deal with these things. The manager of the restaurant also hurriedly followed, muttering, "Nonsense, the broken things in the store must be compensated, and the losses caused by the scared guests must be settled." Inside the Pokémon police station. "Sorry." The four hooligans hung their heads and apologized with bitter faces, looking as embarrassed as they could be. Who would have thought that the object of a few casual jokes had such a big background behind them? Because they seriously disturbed public order and greatly affected the normal operation of the restaurant, they undoubtedly took most of the responsibility and also needed to be detained. However, they had no friendly attitude towards John. They stared at John's face fiercely, clearly wanting to imprint his appearance deeply in their minds so that they could take revenge in the future. "John, have you paid the fine last time?" Jun Sha sat on the stool, elegantly crossing her legs, and her posture was like a strong woman. When John heard this, a trace of guilt flashed across his face, and he shook his head slowly. "Not yet. How about paying it all this time?" "John, what fine? What did you do last time?" Xiao Sheng and Xiao Yao both widened their eyes and stared at John curiously. Qun Li walked over quickly and said to Juncha, "Kaiyang's fine is all on me." After all, he was trying to protect Xiao Sheng, so he took action in a hurry. "Yes, they were the ones who teased my sister first, why do we have to take responsibility?" Xia Sheng's face turned red with anger. After hearing Qun Li's words, he stood up all of a sudden with dissatisfaction, clenched his hands into fists, and his eyes were full of confusion. "Yes, Miss Juncha, if that's the case, doesn't it mean that we can only swallow our anger when we are bullied?" Xiao Ao's face was also stained with anger, and her brows were furrowed. John quickly reached out his hand to stop them. "Xiao Ao Xiao Sheng, Miss Juncha is only determining the responsibility according to the alliance law. After all, we have also caused a bad impact on other people's restaurants. And, Mr. Qun Li, I caused the trouble, I will pay the fine myself." John was full of confidence at this moment. He is no longer the John before. This punishment is nothing to him. At most, when he has no money, he can ask Devon or sell some things to solve it. "Okay." Qun Li saw John's firm look and didn't seem to be faking it, so he let him go. Anyway, John now has someone investing behind him, so he is not too worried. "After the fine is paid, I still have to remind you that Yukihira, who clashed with you today, the one with green hair, his brother is a gym-level trainer and was also one of the top 4 in the last KO conference." Finally, Juncha solemnly reminded John that she had seen many people like this, and she didn't dare to guarantee whether John would suffer revenge from these people in the future. "Is he a gangster?" "No, he's a bounty hunter." Although bounty hunters have long been whitewashed, there are still many people wandering in the grey area, but every region cannot lack these people, so the League has already tacitly accepted this profession in the past few years. Bounty hunters have now successfully become registered trainers of the League and can also participate in the League conference. In fact, John planned to join this industry a few years ago when he learned that bounty hunters had been whitewashed. If he hadn't been appreciated by Qun Li and others, I'm afraid he would have been taking tasks everywhere at this time. "Thank you, Miss Juncha." John thanked Juncha with gratitude, and Juncha just wanted to avoid some bad situations. After walking out of the police station and getting on Qun Li's car, Xiao Sheng instantly put his unpleasant experience behind him and immediately asked John. "John, are you still going to participate in the event?" "Yes, after all, I just paid a fine of 60,000 yuan, and I must make up for the money." John knew about this a long time ago. This is an event jointly organized by many merchants. In the event, the 16th to 5th place can get a 50,000 free coupon for any product under their brand, the 4th place can get a 100,000 free coupon, the 3rd place can get 150,000, the 2nd place can get 250,000, and the 1st place can get up to 500,000. At the same time, the top 3 can also get a Pokémon. First place winner will be selected for the evolutionary items or the items to be carried. However, the organizer has not yet announced what the evolutionary items are. The prerequisite for registration is that the trainer must have registered for this league meeting. Due to the advance publicity, it is estimated that more than 1,000 people have gathered here. This is a warm-up match, and the league is very supportive of it. Because of this, many trainers have flocked to Chinjua City in these days. Chinjua Gym is even busier. Today is the first day of registration, and there is another day tomorrow. In these 2 days, 3/4 of the players will be eliminated. Because the competition adopts a doubles competition mode, 2 newly registered trainers are randomly assigned to form a team and fight against the other 2 trainers. The winning side will have another one-on-one battle, so only one of the 4 people can win. It will not be until the top 16 are left that the 3-on-3 competition will be adopted. Fortunately, John originally planned to stay in Chinjua City for a few days, so participating in this event does not delay the trip. That's right, John. Kyun-Lee drove the car attentively while saying earnestly, during the journey, you should fight with other trainers more often, and you can't just bury your head in practice. Xiaoao, after you get the initial Pokémon, you should also actively participate in this kind of activity. Dad hopes that you can grow up soon and become a powerful trainer. The car drove steadily towards the central square, and the sun shone through the car window on everyone. Got it, Dad. After experiencing all kinds of things today, Xiaoao seemed much more mature at this moment, and no longer showed obvious resistance to Kyun-Lee's words as before. At this time, the number of people who signed up was much less than before. John couldn't wait to open the car door, and immediately walked towards the registration office with big strides after getting off the car. Xiaoao, Xiaosheng, you go together, this is a rare opportunity to learn. The 2 were obviously stunned, and then Xiaosheng reacted, unbuckled the seatbelt as quickly as possible, and got out of the car quickly. Chapter 77. Seeing Xiaosheng running away happily, Xiaoao was very surprised. Dad, didn't you not let Xiaosheng get in touch with Pokémon battles so soon? Yes, but Xiaosheng has learned everything in school, and his foundation is even more solid than that of many new trainers. Now he likes to follow John, so let him start to get in touch slowly. Kyun-Lee's words revealed his helplessness towards Xiaosheng, but more of it was the pride that was difficult to conceal. John is a reliable trainer and a trustworthy person. Dad can also feel relieved if you and Xiaosheng go on a trip with him. Kyun-Lee stared out the window and laughed at Xiaosheng, who was constantly looking for a perfect position. Yes. Xiaoao also thought of John's unhesitating move to help himself and Xiaosheng out of trouble, and his heart was suddenly filled with gratitude. Wait. Dad, you said travel? We and Xiaosheng. Xiaoao finally reacted, and his hand that was unbuckling the seatbelt stopped instantly, looking at Kyun-Lee with a puzzled face. Xiaosheng told me that he wanted to travel with you, so I gave him a lot of questions, including safety issues encountered in the wild. Haven't you noticed that he rarely appears in front of you recently? How is his study? Xiaoao couldn't help asking, and Kyun-Lee smiled lovingly. I didn't ask. As a father, what I can give Xiaosheng is to provide help and give him a higher starting point. As for how far he can go, it depends on him. Xiaoao, the same goes for you. Whether you want to become a Pokémon trainer or not, Dad supports you. Dad, Xiaoao didn't expect that Kyun-Lee knew that she didn't like Pokémon. She lowered her head in shame. As the daughter of the Orange Gym Master, she felt that she was too unsuccessful. Kyun-Lee felt Xiaoao's emotions, stretched out her rough hands, and gently rubbed Xiaoao's head. Go out more and you will always find things you like and choose your future direction. Okay, go, Xiaosheng is waiting. Xiaoao watched Xiaosheng find a good position and leave an empty seat for herself, and she couldn't help but feel touched. Then I'll get off the car, Dad. Xiaoao pushed open the car door, got off the car immediately, and ran towards Xiaosheng. Sister, what did you talk about with Dad in the car? Xiaoao finally squeezed in, Xiaosheng asked curiously, but his eyes were fixed on the doubles match on the stage. Nothing, Dad said you have grown up, Xiaosheng. Xiaoao also learned from Kyun-Lee and touched Xiaosheng's head. Xiaosheng embarrassedly broke away immediately. Look, John is on the court. John was assigned to a group with a little girl wearing glasses, and the 2 strong men opposite him burst into laughter when they saw John and his teammates. Little boy, don't get beaten to tears later. Please release your Pokémon, Red and Blue. The referee has been shouting for a day, and now he is too lazy to repeat the rules. John is on the red side. He looked at the little girl who took out the Pokeball firmly, and he took it out at the same time and threw it out together. The 2 strong men on the blue side threw out Electabuzz and Fang Cage. John on the red side threw out Gyarados and Charizard. Fortunately, the venue is large enough, otherwise Gyarados would have no place to stay for other Pokémon. And judging from the attributes of the Pokémon released by the opponent, it is very disadvantageous to Gyarados. Use Seed Machine Gun on Gyarados. Use 100,000 volts on Electabuzz. The battle started, and the blue side took the lead in attacking Gyarados, which was restrained by them in terms of attributes, but John's Gyarados had already undergone a series of special training. Gyarados, resist the attack, and then use Destruction Beam on Electabuzz. Roar! Gyarados roared, crossed his body in the middle, raised his head to resist the attacks of the two Pokémon, and then instantly fired a Destruction Beam, hitting Electabuzz directly. How is it possible? Gyarados should not be able to resist 100,000 volts. Electabuzz's trainer was obviously panicked. He looked at Electabuzz lying on the ground and was killed instantly. Fire Spirit, use Jet Flame. John's teammates were obviously stunned, but they still reacted. Fire Spirit used Jet Flame on Fang Cage. Use the whip to pull Gyarados to dodge. Fang Cage took advantage of the sequelae of Gyarados' slow movement after using Destruction Beam to pull, and Fire Spirit's Jet Flame missed, and it had already jumped to Gyarados. Dragon. Gyarados, use Tornado. Gyarados was surrounded by air waves and immediately blew Fang Cage into the sky. The last blow, used Dragon's Fury. Fang Cage was hit hard again and fell heavily from mid-air, completely losing its ability to fight. Great, John won. Xiao Sheng jumped up excitedly in the audience. Xiao Ao was puzzled. Xiao Sheng, I remember that in school, the knowledge learned that water-type Pokémon have no resistance to lightning. That's because Gyarados still has hidden dragon attributes, which means that John's Gyarados gene is very good and has stimulated resistance to lightning. Both Pokémon on the blue side have lost their ability to fight. The red side won this doubles match. Next, please invite the two trainers on the red side to compete in a one-on-one promotion match. The referee immediately raised the flag and blew the whistle. As soon as the voice fell, the little girl next to John raised her hand. I give up. Then she looked at John embarrassedly. Scarlet is my strongest Pokémon, it is no match for Gyarados. Yet. John did not deny it and nodded directly. Seeing this, the referee took a look at the player information, and then immediately shouted, John advances to the next round. After leaving the stage, a staff member came up immediately, hello, please be on time at 9 o'clock the day after tomorrow to draw lots for the battle. Then he handed over the card of successful promotion. It seems that the next round of battle should be based on this card. After John took it, he replied softly. I know, thank you. Then John and Xiao Ao Xiao Sheng met up and watched other people's battles. John, you are so awesome. I have seen my father's battles. His Pokémon are not as deterrent as Gyarados. It was the first time that Xiao Ao patiently watched a Pokémon battle. He couldn't help but sigh at John's crushing battle. Chapter 78. There are clear rules for gym battles. Gym trainers can only use one gym-level Pokémon at most. Xiao Sheng heard it and immediately explained to Xiao Ao, and John also took over immediately. That's right, but most gym owners have almost never used it, because gym battles are not for victory, but to test challengers. Xiao Sheng nodded repeatedly. He didn't want others to think that his father was labeled as weak because he was often defeated. Okay, let's go back. It's almost dark. Gurgle. Xiao Ao's stomach growled, and she embarrassedly covered her stomach and looked at John and the others. Hee. I didn't eat lunch at noon, so I forgot. John was told that he felt hungry instantly, and Xiao Sheng was the same. Then how about we go buy some snacks first and eat while walking? Xiao Ao and Xiao Sheng immediately raised their hands to agree with John's proposal. They didn't even have to look for it, and the food was automatically placed in front of them. After all, with so many trainers and tourists, the organizers made a lot of money, but more money went into the alliance's pocket. At night, after dinner, John proposed to Qunli that he planned to camp by the sea, and also wanted his Pokémon to have a good time. After all, he had no battle arrangement tomorrow, and tomorrow was the second and last day of the event registration. Qunli thought for a moment and felt that there was nothing wrong with this. After all, although his greenhouse was good, it was not as free and vast as nature. So, John carried a backpack with 2 days of food and temporarily said goodbye to Qunli's family. Xiao Sheng was looking forward to coming with him, but was decisively rejected by John. What a joke, I'm not a nanny, and I haven't officially started the trip yet. I didn't even bring Xiao Ao with me, so how could I bring Xiao Shang with me? Qinjue city is close to the sea. At this time, many people have camped near the beach. John's original ideal of occupying a beach alone was instantly shattered. But he thought about it and felt that this was reasonable. Not everyone can live in the Pokémon Center for free. Then, John released the Gyarados under the surprised gaze of everyone. He climbed on the top of the Gyarados with agility and directed it to swim overseas. After all, there are many uninhabited islands overseas. He doesn't like to live in a small house with others and be disturbed in various ways. He would rather spend more time to find a quiet and comfortable place farther away. Gyarados seemed particularly happy. Since following John, it rarely has the opportunity to swim in the sea like this. And John was riding a Gyarados for the first time. He couldn't suppress his excitement. He felt the breeze blowing and kept talking to the Gyarados. Gyarados enjoyed the feeling of having John all to himself, but it was not selfish. It saw an island from a distance, and immediately accelerated and sprinted over. Yes, there was no light on the island, and there were coconut trees everywhere. In the dark night, the island showed a different color under the reflection of the moonlight. John immediately jumped off the head of Gyarados, quickly threw the Pokémon ball, and all the Pokémon appeared in front of him. Before they could see the surrounding environment clearly, John immediately ordered. Hydra, Wolfhound, you go into the forest and bring back some dry wood. Toucan, you take the baby dragon to patrol the island, and come back immediately if you find anything. Gyarados, you are free to move and hunt by yourself, but remember to come back. Several Pokémon received John's instructions and immediately started to act without hesitation. Only one Gyarados was left standing there, pointing at himself, as if he wanted to know his mission. John first fed Gyarados an energy block. At this time, he did not light the fire, and his vision was a little dim. After the Wolfhound and Hound came back, John set up a fire and started grilling meat. This was his midnight snack, while the Wolfhound and Hound went hunting. John treated his Pokémon in a unique way. In the wild, he hoped that they would use hunting to exercise their bodies. As for the improvement of other abilities, he would intervene. Taking advantage of this gap, John pulled the reluctant Bank IRAs and walked slowly to the seaside. Bank IRAs, walk slowly. This was not the first time Bank IRAs had been in this situation. He had been watered by Gyarados' water cannon before, and he also knew that John was doing this to help him overcome his fear of water. Bank IRAs did not hesitate at all. He hesitated, and took a bath in the sea water until he could no longer bear it, and then he rushed to the shore. John had been recording the time carefully. As long as Gyarados' endurance limit became longer, it would be a success. But Gyarados' physical energy consumption was extremely high, and he needed to replenish nutrition continuously. For it, John spent a lot of money and bought a lot of nutrients and tree fruits, just for this moment. John firmly believed that Bang IRAs, who was not afraid of water, would definitely surprise everyone. Time passed by minute, and the baby dragon and the toucan, who had played enough, finally came back. After confirming that this was an uninhabited island, John was completely relieved. At least when practicing, he would not be disturbed by the outside world. As usual, the baby dragon ate the nutrients and energy cubes that John prepared for it every day, and then fell asleep in the tent. The first night of training ended here. Bang Ilis, who stopped training, was so tired that he collapsed on the ground. There was no trace of the so-called coolness of a quasi-god. However, tomorrow is the highlight, so the first night just passed by like this. The first ray of sunlight in the morning shone gently, and the Wolfhound and Hound opened their eyes quickly. A lobster soldier was running rampant on the beach, and was suddenly blocked by a huge thing in front of him. Its mother, the iron claw lobster, told it that as long as it knocked away the obstacles in front of it, it could keep moving forward. It immediately used its crab fist and swung it towards the tent, but this time it overestimated itself. Several Pokémon were awakened by its movement and kept staring at it. The Wolfhound blocked the crab fist with a steel tail. What's going on? The movement of the battle disturbed John, who was sleeping. He gradually woke up and shook his still groggy head. The sunlight shone through the tent, which was a bit dazzling. He stretched himself and then slowly walked out of the tent, and saw the big Wolfhound competing fiercely with the lobster soldier in strength. Chapter 79. John kept staring at the lobster soldier, thinking whether to try its meat. Later, he thought about it and decided to forget it. His appetite was not very big, and he didn't like to eat crayfish. Although the lobster soldier was very strong, it was still no match for the big wolfhound and was quickly defeated. John grabbed it, then threw it up, and then raised his left leg and kicked it. Gyarados immediately took over and pushed it into the sea. Gyarados didn't like things covered with shells, otherwise the lobster soldier would have become its food long ago. Get up, assemble. After receiving John's order, they all quickly cheered up. Now I will divide them into groups. Gyarados will fight against Bank IRAs, and Gyrocopter will fight against Houndoom. You should move the battlefield farther away and do not interfere with each other's battles. Another thing is to try to familiarize yourself with the special moves you just learned, especially Bank IRAs, your evil special moves are still to be developed. Toucan knew its position, and it immediately flew into the air and began to patrol the island. The other Pokémon immediately pulled away. John did not go to see them, and started to make breakfast by himself. In addition, Baby Dragon has not woken up yet, and its sleep quality has been getting better and better recently. Gyarados immediately used the water cannon special move, Bank IRAs did not dodge, and roared to catch the sturdy water cannon. Although it was rushed out a few meters, it was caught anyway and did not suffer much damage. Although its second attribute is evil, so far, it has only mastered the 3 evil special moves of Bite, Tooth for Tooth, and Evil Wave. Moreover, under the guidance of Boscodora, it still focuses on strength. However, before it withstood Gyarados' water cannon, it was accumulating energy to fight back. The accumulated evil attribute energy quickly doubled, forming a huge energy, which doubled the attack it suffered and returned it to Gyarados. Pokémon with evil attributes always take revenge, and this attack also includes the resentment of being baptized by water cannon before. Gyarados was very flexible in the sea and directly dodged the attack of Bank IRAs. If it withstood this move, it might not be able to hold on. The gap in strength between the two sides is here, and it is almost no match for Bank IRAs. However, this further aroused Gyarados' competitive spirit. It immediately came out of the sea and tightly wrapped Bank IRAs, as if saying give me back my position as the boss. Bank IRAs quickly activated the sand-raising characteristic, and the battlefield instantly became dusty, interfering with Gyarados' vision. Gyarados was blinded by the dust in the sky, but its entanglement did not relax at all. Banguiras felt the restraint on his body and struggled vigorously. His sturdy limbs kept waving, trying to break free from Gyarados' restraint. Although Gyarados' vision was blocked, Banguiras was still tightly entangled by it. Banguiras saw that he could not break free, and gathered the energy of evil fluctuations in his mouth. A black energy wave shot out from his mouth and rushed straight towards Gyarados. Gyarados felt pain and had to let Banguiras go. Banguiras, who was freed, immediately turned around, opened his mouth wide, and used the bite to bite towards Gyarados' body. Gyarados flexibly swung its tail to avoid this fierce bite, and at the same time used the power of its tail to hit Banguiras hard. Banguiras staggered after being hit, and after it stabilized its body, it rushed up again. Gyarados did not retreat either, and the water cannon trick was launched again, and a strong stream of water rushed towards Banguiras. Bank IRAs did not dodge or evade, and a layer of faint black light appeared on his body, which was the power of tit-for-tat accumulating. When the water cannon hit it, it converted all the power it had endured and returned it to Gyarados in double. Gyarados immediately used the Destruction Death Ray defense, and the two energies gathered together and exploded immediately. Gyarados was overturned by the powerful impact and rolled back several times, with some damage to the scales on its body. But its eyes were still full of fighting spirit, and there was no intention of retreating. However, it was already panting, and the continuous high-intensity attacks consumed its physical strength. Bank IRAs on the opposite side was still powerful, staring at Gyarados, ready to meet the opponent's next round of attacks. Gyarados adjusted his breathing and rushed up again. Okay. John had long been deeply attracted by the powerful attacks of the two Pokémon, but in order to prevent them from being too hurt, he made a decisive decision and immediately stopped their actions. Although Gyarados was unwilling to give in and let out a low roar, he still stopped obediently. Banguilas held his head high, looking at Gyarados with a smug look in his eyes. We are just practicing, there is no need to cause too much damage, you are partners, aren't you? John strode over, knowing that only by experiencing such a high-intensity battle can they be better trained. But he still has to compete tomorrow, so there is really no need to let them get too seriously injured. Gyarados, although Bank IRAs is currently stronger than you, it is still working hard. I know you are unwilling, but progress must be made step by step. John gently stroked Gyarados' body, picked up the spray, and carefully sprayed it on the injured part. Although it was painful, Gyarados still endured it, and his body trembled slightly. Bank IRAs, you have made great progress and can already withstand the attack of the water cannon very well, but you can't be proud and complacent. You still have a long way to go in the future. Bankeraz's body was also injured, and John also gave it a simple treatment. Afterwards, they were allowed to practice their special moves by themselves, and they were no longer allowed to continue to practice against each other. It was really a headache. John saw that Gyarados had already dived into the seabed, and he thought that the Pokémon on the seabed might be in trouble. Bang Ilis put on the weight-bearing device that John bought for it, and took heavy steps, and began to run around the island. The battle between the Great Wolfhound and Houndour was relatively conventional, which was also the reason why their strength had not improved much recently. John really did not have the extra energy to carefully train the Great Wolfhound and Houndour as he did with Gyarados. So he simply arranged a plan for them and let them execute it themselves. Of course, the supply of energy blocks and nutrients did not stop, and they were still fed on time and in quantity. After all, in the wild, their role is sometimes greater than that of Gyarados. As time quietly passed, night fell again, and it was time to rest again. John has always adhered to the principle of combining work and rest. Chapter 80. After 2 days of intensive registration and battles, the climax of the event finally officially kicked off. In the past 2 days, many curious citizens began to rank the contestants. Based on the known Pokémon information, John was actually ranked 5th. Xiao Shang ran to John with this information in his hand. This ranking really surprised John. After all, the organizer had been vigorously promoting for a whole week, and many contestants came from other places. A total of 1,120 trainers participated. Although the 500,000 Alliance Coins merchandise vouchers are not a lot, the mysterious evolutionary props or carrying props that the top 3 can get are the main reasons for everyone's enthusiastic participation. The organizer obviously knows where the biggest gimmick of this event is, so it has not been announced yet. However, John found a familiar name from the information Xiao Shang gave him. Although he has never seen it in person, it does not prevent him from knowing this person. Zhong Zheng, the top 16 player of this year's KO conference, lost to Zai in the game. He rushed to Chinjua City yesterday, and the Pokémon he used was Swampert, which is currently ranked 11th. John held the number plate 256, stood behind a group of trainers, and quietly waited for the staff to call out the number. Now the 2v2 doubles match is still going on. Unlike yesterday, this time the people on the same team will advance together to the next game, and the next game will be a 1v1 confrontation. On the 3 battle platforms in front, fierce battles are taking place at this time, and sparks are flying. But what surprised him was that none of the top-ranked people met each other, and he couldn't help but seriously suspect that this was a secret operation by the organizer behind the scenes. The battle went very quickly, and it took almost 2 or 3 minutes to end one game. John estimated that there might be 2 battles today. Then the trainer whose number was called immediately cheered up and went on stage to start the next fierce battle. Such a fast battle process made the audience in the audience exclaim with excitement. The shouts from the audience greatly affected the mood of the trainers and Pokémon. Since there were 280 players who advanced, 70 matches were required. After waiting for less than 2 hours, it was John's turn to compete. Of course, John did not sit in a daze during these 2 hours, but watched the opponents' battles with full concentration. Now the people ahead of him have already played, and as soon as he played, he instantly led a wave of enthusiasm. Yesterday's Gyarados performed so amazingly that the audience in the audience still remembers John, a fledgling trainer. John. Because John has been in the player's seat, it was Mitsuko who accompanied Xiaoao and Xiao Shang to arrive here today. Xiaoao saw John on stage and cheered for John, and her voice once overshadowed Xiao Shang. The deafening cheers from the audience surprised his teammates. You seem to be quite popular. Then he stretched out his hand and shook hands with John enthusiastically. Hello, my name is Tamano. Hello, my name is John. John smiled faintly. He also knew this person. He had watched the games of the KO conference in his previous life several times. This Tamano was also a trainer who lost to Zai. Since he didn't know the top 4 players except Tetsuya, John didn't dare to guarantee whether they would appear here. The 20th match of the 3rd venue will be held next. The doubles match mode will be adopted. When all the Pokémon of one side lose their combat ability, the battle will end. Now the match begins. Please release your Pokémon, red and blue. As the referee of the third venue shouted loudly, 4 Pokeballs were thrown out at the same time. This is the rule. John still chose to fight with Gyarados. Yesterday's injury has been fully recovered, and there is no problem fighting again. Tomoya used Tropical Dragon, which flapped its wings and flew up as soon as it appeared, which could also cooperate well with Gyarados. The opponent was still the blue team, and the Pokémon used were Mantis and Thunderbolt, neither of which were native Pokémon of the Hoenn region. Thunderbolt, use 100,000 volts on Gyarados. At the beginning of the game, Thunderbolt took the lead in attacking, and saw the electric current surging around it, and instantly used 100,000 volts at all costs on Gyarados. Tropical Dragon, use Guard to help Gyarados withstand the damage. However, Tomoya was quick-witted and grabbed John's shoulder and nodded to him, shouted at Tropical Dragon. Tropical Dragon did not hesitate, and swung its powerful wings violently, blocking Gyarados in front of it with lightning speed, using the defense, and perfectly caught the 100,000 volts of Thunder Zebra. Giant Mantis, use the cross scissors on Tropical Dragon. Get out of the way, use the seed machine gun. Giant Mantis immediately took action after hearing the order, waving its extremely sharp pliers in an instant, using the cross scissors, and pounced on Tropical Dragon. Tropical Dragon was not afraid of danger, flapping its wings behind it, shaking its body, and hurriedly flew up, narrowly avoiding this fatal blow. Then, it sprayed dense seed machine guns like rain from its mouth, launching a fierce counterattack against Giant Mantis. Take advantage of this moment, Thunder Zebra, use 100,000 volts on Gyarados again. At this time, Tropical Dragon, who was restrained by the giant claw mantis, had no time to care about other things. John, who had been watching the battle, finally gave the order. Gyarados, use Tornado. In an instant, a violent tornado roared out and collided violently with 100,000 volts. The collision of the two emitted a dazzling light and a deafening sound. However, the tornado easily resolved Thunder Zebra's attack, and then approached Thunder Zebra with the remaining power of lightning. Thunder Zebra, run at full speed to avoid it. Thunder Zebra reacted quickly, running at full speed with 4 hooves. At the same time, accompanied by the roar of thunder, it was very fast, bypassing the tornado and quickly approaching Gyarados. Gyarados did not receive John's order, so it stopped quietly in place, motionless. Just when the opponent thought John had given up, John suddenly shouted. Gyarados, Water Tail! Water Tail? Xiaosheng, doesn't the effect of the Water type special move on the Electric type be halved? Does this move really work? Xiaoao has been studying hard these past 2 days, and attribute restraint is the most basic course. At this moment, she looked at Xiaosheng and asked curiously. Sister, the Water type special move is effective against the Grass type, and Gyarados' Water Tail is very powerful. Once the Thunder Zebra is hit, it will definitely be hit hard by Gyarados' tail and fly away. Xiaosheng has seen countless battles, and he said with great experience. Chapter 81. Xiaosheng was right. The Lightning Zebra, running at top speed, still couldn't dodge and was hit by Gyarados' Water Tail, which blew it into the air. Gyarados, use Dragon's Fury. John gave the order without hesitation. Gyarados instantly gathered strength and threw out a huge golden sphere, which hit the Lightning Zebra accurately again. The Lightning Zebra's body fell heavily to the ground, and dust flew everywhere. After falling to the ground, it never got up again. Damn it, Mantis, use Lightning Flash, and use Cross Scissors when you get close to Tropical Dragon. Seeing his companions being defeated, Mantis burst into red flashes, became more and more crazy, and launched a fierce attack on Tropical Dragon again. Tropical Dragon, hide behind Gyarados, and then use the Vine Whip to catch Mantis. Tropical Dragon reacted quickly and flexibly descended from the air. It cleverly used Gyarados' huge body to avoid Mantis' fierce attack, and then quickly used the tough Vine Whip to catch Mantis' 2 pincers. Gyarados, destroy the Death Ray. Taking advantage of Mantis' restricted movement, the yellow energy in Gyarados' body quickly gathered, shining, and then suddenly launched a powerful destruction Death Ray, which directly hit Mantis. Mantis' body fell from the air powerlessly in an instant, losing its ability to fight, and lying on the ground motionless. The battle is over. Since both of the blue team's Pokémon have lost their ability to fight, the red team wins this battle. Seeing this, the referee immediately announced the result loudly. You are really strong, you are worthy of being the 5th-ranked player. Both Pokémon were killed by Gyarados in one blow. Tomoya was still frightened, but also a little relieved that he didn't have to play the next battle with his teammates. It's a pleasure to work with you. John responded with a smile. Xiaosheng, why did Gyarados defeat the Pokémon on the opposite side with just one move? Offstage, Xiaoao blurted out the question in her heart again. Xiaosheng raised his glasses and said in an adult tone. Sister, look at the momentum. John's Gyarados is close to the gym level, and the opposite side's Zebra and Mantis should have just entered the elite level not long ago. The gap in strength is a bit disparate, so they were killed by Gyarados in one blow. Momentum. Xiaoao looked puzzled. Yes, this is a compulsory lesson for Pokémon battles. Although there are many examples of over-level victory, the level is still the most critical factor in measuring the strength of Pokémon. The most typical example is attribute restraint. Among the 4 kings of Kanto, why has there been no champion? It is because the Ice King Kona restrained the Dragon King Du. Watching her children interacting like this, Mitsuko showed a loving smile on her face. Xiaoao finally had such a positive change in seeking knowledge. Look at the number 2 battle stage, it's Latios. Oh, wow, it really is. Hurry up and take a picture. I didn't expect the legendary Pokémon to appear here. Where is it? Xiaosheng came back to his senses in an instant and hurriedly looked towards the number 2 battle stage. Wow, sister, it's really Latios. Even if Xiaoao is ignorant, she has heard of the name of this Pokémon, and she hurriedly looked over there. Latios. John had returned to the contestant's seat at this time. Hearing this exclamation, his eyes were instantly attracted. A blue and white Pokémon that looked like a jet was floating in the air. It was Latios. He had never thought that there would be a trainer of Latios in this year's Keiho Conference. Speaking of the League Conference, only in the Lily of the Valley Conference, Dakoto, known as the Divine Beast Man, had legendary Pokémon, including Latios. However, the appearance of this man in front of him was very different from the impression of Dakoto. Did he remember it wrong? Or are the Divine Beasts now everywhere? No. No, if this trainer really participated in the Keiho Conference, Zha would never have become the champion. What's more, this year's League Conference was criticized by everyone as the weakest one. Looking at Latios who defeated the enemy with just one simple move, John couldn't help but feel a sense of powerlessness in his heart. At the same time, he was also deeply confused. How could such a powerful Latios not reach the level of a king? However, this Latios has already reached the level of a quasi-king, and is simply the ceiling in the league meeting. Among the remaining Pokémon of the trainer who owns it, except for a gym-level Dream Demon, what is the strength of the rest of the Pokémon? John looked through his profile again. He was the trainer ranked first by the citizens, Nix. 70 duels have ended. There will be 35 one-on-one duels in the afternoon. Then 6 trainers will be randomly selected from the 35 winning trainers for another duel. In other words, after today, the remaining trainers will become 32. The 70 to 32 duel will start at 2 p.m., and there is no time to rest. In fact, the organizers thoughtfully provided lunch for the contestants, but Mitsuko and others did not leave. So John had to choose a nearby restaurant with them for dinner. John, do you have any way to fight Latios? While waiting for the dishes to be served, Xiaosheng couldn't help but asked anxiously. Mitsuko immediately glared at him fiercely. After all, she had clearly agreed not to add pressure to John. No, but I can only go all out. Kaiang shook his head helplessly, looking at Xiaosheng with a worried face, and couldn't help laughing. Xiaosheng, why do you feel that it's you who's participating in the competition instead of me? Is it different? This is my first time participating in a competition, and you represent me at this moment. Snap! Xiaoao slapped Xiaosheng fiercely and said speechlessly, you are only 9 years old, how come you are the one participating? That's better than a sister who knows nothing. Xiaosheng complained unyieldingly, and the battle between the two became more and more intense. Qiaoan hurriedly stopped him. Okay, stop it. Mitsuko was even more impolite, reaching out and pinching the ears of the two, and instantly subdued the two little guys. Qiaoan had already seen it through at this time, thinking that it was just a little reward, and it would be gone if it was gone. Time passed in a flash, and soon it was 2 o'clock. Although the sun was scorching and the heat was unbearable, it still couldn't stop people's enthusiasm. The square was already surrounded by dense crowds of people, like a thick human wall. Because starting from the afternoon, the battle will become more and more exciting. Chapter 82. Mom, we seem to be late. Xiao Sheng looked at John's back, which had already gone far away, and then looked at the gap in front of him where there was no space for them to squeeze in, and he became depressed instantly. It doesn't matter, don't forget that our home is the Orange Gym. Mitsuko looked calm and didn't care at all. As the wife of the gym owner, it was understandable that she used a little power at this time. As she dialed the phone, in just 2 minutes, a staff member hurried over and led them directly to the best position for watching the game. The next 70 trainers who participated in the battle were all elite trainers at the lowest level. In order to prevent cheating such as buying off opponents, the organizers would wait until before the battle to draw lots every time. In addition, there were several serious staff members on the trainer's viewing seat to supervise, and it was strictly forbidden for the two sides to contact each other before the battle. John was lucky to draw number 1 this time, and his opponent was number 70. In other words, John and he were the first trainers to start the battle. At this time, the 3 original platforms on the central square had been demolished, and replaced by a larger and more solid battlefield. The subsequent battle mode completely simulates the Alliance Conference, and a random field draw will be conducted before each battle. The 4 fields are the rock field, the grass field, the water field and the ordinary field. It must be said that the organizers really spent a lot of money. However, they have made a lot of money in the past few days, and at the same time have greatly boosted the tourism economy of Jinjua City. John stood on the competition field, and the audience instantly burst into deafening cheers. In the first 2 battles, Gyarados' performance has attracted many fans for John. Although it is not certain whether John will release Gyarados this time, it does not hinder the passion of fans at all. John has never seen his opponent before, which means that his previous performance was not particularly outstanding, so he was not remembered by the audience. When John and his opponent were in position, the huge screen behind the battle stage began to rotate back and forth on the options of the 4 venues, and finally stopped steadily at the word water. In fact, the water venue is not entirely made up of water. 2/3 of it is water, and the remaining 1/3 is land. After confirming that it is the water venue, John couldn't help laughing. Luck is also part of strength. He originally planned to continue using Gyarados and let it experience high-intensity battles to promote its growth. I believe that after this game, it can touch the threshold of the gym level. If it can jump into the gym level, it will be even better. Xiao Sheng in the audience shouted excitedly, "Great, it's the water venue. John's Gyarados can perform perfectly this time." Xiao Ao didn't shout as excitedly as Xiao Sheng. She just looked at the confident John on the stage quietly, and a smile appeared on her face involuntarily. The elimination round of 70 to 32 will begin, and the venue is the water venue. The red team is John from Wuda Town, and the blue team is Masahiro from Liulai City. They only use 1 Pokémon. Please release your Pokémon at the same time. The referee is already in place. He raised his hands high and blew a crisp whistle. John and Masahiro took out the Pokeballs at the same time and threw them out at the same time without hesitation. Go, Gyarados! Go, Swampert! The 7-meter-long Gyarados appeared directly in the water, while in contrast, the 1.5-meter-tall Swampert stood firmly on land. Amazing! In the first match, John continued to use Gyarados, while Masahiro chose to release Swampert, which had never appeared before. It seems that facing Gyarados, who is not afraid of electric shock, Masahiro wisely chose Swampert, which is a water and ground type. In the commentary booth, a commentator began to set off the atmosphere with excitement. John glanced at Masahiro and made a gesture of invitation, "You attack first." "Okay." Masahiro was not polite and gave orders decisively. "Swampert, use water cannon." Swampert opened his mouth and spit out a very thick water cannon, which attacked Gyarados fiercely. John looked at Gyarados and calmly gave orders. "Gyarados, we also use water cannons." Gyarados let out a deafening roar, and the 2 thick water cannons met fiercely in mid-air. However, Gyarados' water cannon was obviously thicker and stronger, and the collision point of the 2 sides' water cannons was moving towards Swampert at a speed visible to the naked eye. Move quickly. Seeing this, Masahiro frowned. "Swampert, avoid it, use close-range punches." Swampert stopped releasing water cannons, and then jumped into the water without hesitation. It was very fast in the water, and in a blink of an eye it was close to Gyarados. "Gyarados, use your tail to block it." "What?" Masahiro looked at Swampert's fist being easily blocked by ordinary defense, and his face was full of surprise. Do you think my Gyarados only trains against electric shocks? John laughed. Gyarados, who has no hands and feet, obviously cannot rely on that bloody mouth without training its tail. Swampert, use Muddy Current, followed by Sharp Stone Attack. Under Swampert, a muddy stream of earthy yellow water suddenly appeared, trying to control Gyarados firmly. Then, it raised its hands, and sharp stones appeared, shooting at Gyarados like bullets. Gyarados, break free and dive into the water. The rock-type trick caused great damage to Gyarados. Even though its scales were extremely hard, it chose to hide if it could. Gyarados' tail burst out with an extremely powerful force, and it slapped hard and plunged into the water. Only a vague black shadow could be seen under the water. Be careful underwater! Masahiro shouted anxiously, but unfortunately Gyarados swam very fast underwater, and the two Pokémon were not far away. In just a moment, Gyarados used his head to push Swampert away. Bite it! Gyarados then flew out, opened its bloody mouth, and the rich black energy wrapped around its sharp teeth. Swampert, use the water cannon! Swampert immediately obeyed the order and used the water cannon swiftly towards Gyarados. With the help of the reaction force of the water cannon, it successfully avoided the attack of Gyarados. Great! John couldn't help but clap his hands, with an admiring look in his eyes. Masahiro would not miss this great opportunity when Gyarados left the pool. Chapter 83. Use Mud Bombs. Swampert took advantage of the opportunity when Gyarados left the pool and attacked Gyarados fiercely again. Fist-sized mud bombs exploded on Gyarados' head and body one after another. Gyarados, hold on! Hearing John's voice, Gyarados stopped roaring in pain, endured the severe pain, and withstood the attack. Although the damage was not very high, it was still painful. Gyarados' anger at this time had risen to the extreme like a volcano about to erupt. It suddenly began to twist its huge body, and then a mysterious pattern appeared on its body. It's Dragon Dance! John was a little surprised. He didn't expect Gyarados to learn Dragon Dance in battle. In this state, its attack and speed will be significantly improved. Swampert, use the Freeze Punch! Masahiro immediately gave Swampert an order with a nervous look. Swampert ran hard and then punched Gyarados' body fiercely. Tie up Swampert! Suddenly, Gyarados' tail appeared in front of Swampert like lightning. With the blessing of Dragon Dance, Gyarados' speed increased a lot. It withstood the freeze punch and tied up Swampert tightly. Get free quickly! No matter how anxious Masahiro's voice was, Swampert was no match for Gyarados in terms of strength. Gyarados continued to increase its strength, and Swampert immediately cried out in pain. Gyarados, the last blow, bite it! Gyarados turned his head and used the bite again. This time there was no accident. Swampert gradually lost the power to resist under Gyarados' sharp teeth. Let it go! The audience was silent, watching Swampert nervously. John didn't dare to kill it accidentally. Even if Swampert didn't lose its fighting ability, he had to let it go quickly. Fortunately, as Gyarados' body left, Swampert's body didn't move at all, and it completely lost its fighting ability. Swampert lost its fighting ability, Gyarados won. So the winner is John. The referee approached and took a closer look, then immediately raised the red flag in his hand and shouted loudly. The audience at the scene burst into strong cheers. Compared with a game that decided the outcome with one move, they obviously preferred such a back-and-forth and exciting battle. Of course, the happiest person was the organizer. In the first match, John and Masahiro perfectly mobilized the emotions of the audience. I lost. Masahiro lowered his head after taking back Swampert, and said with a frustrated look. The two were a little far away, and John couldn't go over to shake hands with him. He walked down the battle platform and returned to the spectator seat. He couldn't leave now. After all, after the 35 battles were over, 6 people would be randomly selected to fight, reducing the number to only 32 people. However, he quickly found the location of Mitsuko and the others, gave the Gyarados' Pokeball to Xiaosheng, wrote a letter of entrustment and the reason, and asked him to help send it to the Pokémon Center for free treatment. Xiaosheng was a little entangled. Wouldn't he be unable to watch the subsequent games? But Gyarados' condition also required a trip to the Pokémon Center. Xiaosheng, leave it to Mom, you and your sister continue to watch the game here. Mitsuko saw Xiaosheng's entanglement, and then took the Pokémon ball. John, you work hard, we all see it. Thank you, Aunt Mitsuko. John touched the back of his head a little embarrassedly. The second game had already started. He said a few simple words and returned to the spectator seat. After all, studying the opponent and his Pokémon is also a compulsory task for a trainer. The second match was a young master dressed up. He used Tyranitar, and the opponent was a pretty good King Swallow. However, within 3 minutes, Tyranitar's freezing ray defeated the King Swallow. The third match also started soon. Then one battle after another continued, except for a few trainers who were particularly strong. The Pokémon battles of others were back and forth, extremely fierce. The audience cheered in waves. This was the battle they wanted to watch, but there was an exception, that was Nyx. He still used Latios to fight. Many trainers have been trying to find out about him, but they only know that he is a trainer from the Sinnoh region. John estimated that the League is now conducting an in-depth analysis of his identity. Being able to possess a legendary Pokémon, or a trainer of the second-level god, is worth the Alliance's efforts to win over at all costs. The 35 matches lasted nearly 4 hours before they ended. It was summer, and the sky had not yet darkened, and there were still 3 matches to go. John was the first player to win, so he naturally walked in the front. In the lottery box, there were 29 blanks, and the remaining 6 had 2 notes of 1, 2, and 3 written on them. Obviously, the trainer who drew the number will fight, and the rest of the trainers can leave or continue to watch. John was lucky to draw a blank note, but he did not choose to stay. He had to go to the Pokémon Center to see the situation of Gyarados. Xiao Sheng obviously didn't want to leave. After returning from the Pokémon Center, Mitsuko had already taken Xiaoao back to the gym to prepare a table of sumptuous food for John to replenish his body. In the end, John bought a barbecue and succeeded in getting Xiao Sheng to follow him back obediently. The challenge area in the front yard of Chinju Gym has been closed. It is already 6 o'clock, which is the time to get off work. Naoki and Sayori are enjoying dinner. When they see John coming back, they immediately put down their bowls and chopsticks and quickly walk forward to ask. In the backyard, Kyunli has also returned. He is listening to Xiaoao's description of John's performance in the game. This is also Kyunli's request to Xiaoao. Let her concentrate on watching the game first, then travel with John, and finally confirm whether she wants to become a Pokémon trainer. Mitsuko has also prepared the meal, and it is estimated that John and Xiao Sheng should be back soon. John can't leave tonight. He has to play against the 32-16 tomorrow. He only hopes that he will not meet the Nyx. Even if he meets them in the 16-8 game, at least he can get a reward of 50,000. He really has no confidence in winning. The opponent's Pokémon has already revealed that they are gym level and quasi-king level. Tomorrow's battle is a 2-on-2 match. Compared with the first match, it is more flexible. His starting lineup is still Gyarados. After receiving Gyarados, it has fallen asleep. It has not fully recovered from the battle with Bangiris last night. It has fought 2 more battles today and is indeed exhausted. Chapter 84. John, I will go to watch the battle tomorrow. When Kyunli was halfway through her meal, she suddenly raised her head and spoke to John seriously. Mr. Kyunli, are you done? There was a deep meaning in John's words, and Kyunli immediately understood the meaning. He smiled and nodded. There are still some finishing touches to be done, but I have handed them over to Miss Junsha. Kyunli explained slowly. That's right, the gym leader should be in the gym and give more guidance to the younger generation. Mitsuko's heart, which had been hanging for a long time, finally let go. Although she knew that her husband was strong, she couldn't help but worry about the overseas work for more than a month. Okay. Kyunli smiled helplessly. Fortunately, Mitsuko was not angry today. He quickly picked up a lot of dishes for Mitsuko, and then turned his eyes to John. Tonight, I will give you special training. Thank you very much. When John heard this, he quickly put down the bowl in his hand and said solemnly to Kyunli. This move made the whole family burst into laughter. After all, they have been together for so long, so John naturally doesn't need to be cautious and careful when talking to Kyunli. Xiao Sheng has always been very attached to John, and Kyunli also attaches great importance to John. In everyone's opinion, his future can almost be said to be bright. Of course, this is also when John must be more cautious when doing something wrong. This is also what John didn't expect. He originally thought that his life would start from an ordinary starting point like a boy in shorts or a boy catching insects. Fortunately, his Magikarp was competitive enough and completed the evolution in just 1 year. The next day, John got up early, but he didn't expect Xiao Shang to get up earlier than him. However, Xiao Shang got up early because he was excited, and he was going to the greenhouse to check everyone's physical condition. Although the Pokémon that played today were not the other four, they had no complaints. Who let Bangiris and Gyarados be the big brother and big sister among them? After the inspection, John put away Gyarados and Bangiris, and kept Houndoom as a backup. Houndoom is much stronger than the Great Wolfhound. After John captured it, its potential was also stimulated. The Great Wolfhound was not old to begin with, and its foundation was not as strong as Houndoom. Qunli had already prepared the car. He was a heavyweight guest today, and the organizer had already carefully prepared 4 seats for Qunli's family. After John got out of the car, he walked quickly towards the contestant's seat. It was not even 9 o'clock, and the place was already crowded with people. The number of people in Chinchua City has more than doubled in the past 2 days, and most of them are here to see Latios. The organizers urgently contacted the Home League and asked if they could add more seats to the square. So, dozens of Onyx were sent out, and they formed a circle and pulled hundreds of seats. However, even so, the seats were obviously not enough, but there was no other way. The police station also sent a considerable number of police officers to maintain law and order. Judging from the current situation, the scene is still quite orderly. After the commentator gave a few minutes of enthusiastic opening remarks and a long advertisement, John once again stood in the lottery line. This time his number was 28, which was the 5th battle. Many people, like John, stared at Nyx, and soon they were relieved. Nyx was the first trainer to play, and the player opposite him showed a helpless expression. His most powerful Pokémon, Brick Aaron, was killed instantly, and even the dire bear that restrained Latios had the same fate. Soon it was the 5th match. John's opponent was a trainer from Fuyan Town named Kubo. His desert dragon was also very strong, and John had studied his battles. However, as a ground and dragon-type Pokémon, John's Gyarados could just restrain desert dragon. Gyarados knew both dragon-type and ice-type tricks, and I believe he knew where his disadvantages were. Now it started to draw the venue, and finally stopped at the pattern of the rock venue. Ah! Xiao Shang couldn't help but let out a long sigh, his face full of frustration. In this way, Gyarados' strength can't be fully exerted. Xiao Shang, the venues are all random, and this is a 2v2 battle, and John doesn't only have Gyarados. Qunli said slowly with an educational tone, as a trainer, you must adapt to all battle environments. Although the venue is suitable for Gyarados, but not for John's other Pokémon. How to gain an advantage in a disadvantageous environment is the basic skill that a trainer should have. I know, Dad. Xiao Shang nodded obediently. Sitting on the side was one of the organizers of this event. He asked curiously. Master Qunli, do you know this trainer named John? Yes, he currently lives in the Orange Gym and is a younger generation that Daigo values. Qunli nodded slightly and replied. Zifuki Daigo. Qunli's words made him widen his eyes and his face was full of surprise. You know, that was the former 4 Heavenly Kings champion and the next generation helmsman of Devon Company. Please release your Pokémon on both sides, and the red side will attack first. The referee shouted loudly. Go, Electric Dragon! Go, Gyarados! In front of Gyarados, a striking yellow figure appeared. It was the Electra, with a white belly and a bright red sphere on its forehead and tail. Electra, use electromagnetic waves. Kubo took the lead in launching the attack. The red sphere on Electra's forehead instantly lit up with a dazzling red light, and the 2 tentacles also began to flash with frightening electric light. In an instant, the electromagnetic wave rushed towards Gyarados with the force of thunder. Gyarados, get out of the way. Use Dragon's Fury. Roar. As soon as the command fell, Gyarados showed an extremely agile skill, quickly squirming to the side, and then opened its huge mouth towards Electra, and a powerful Dragon's Fury was ejected. Electra, use Dragon's Wave. As Kubo shouted, Dragonite concentrated on responding. With a loud boom, 2 powerful energies collided violently in mid-air, instantly forming an extremely powerful airflow that immediately swept away. In the end, the 2 energies resisted each other and gradually died out. Whether it was Gyarados or Dragonite, neither of them gained even the slightest advantage in this round of fierce confrontation. Chapter 85. The Thunder Dragon began to make full use of its agility and began to move around the field. Facing the attack of Gyarados, it flexibly used the rocks on the field as a shield and approached Gyarados step by step. Thunder Dragon, use Dragon Wave again. Kubo knew that John's Gyarados had a certain resistance to electric moves, so he decisively chose the Dragon move. At such a close distance, Thunder Dragon relied on its speed advantage and quickly ran behind Gyarados. Gyarados had no place to hide and was directly hit by the powerful Dragon Wave. Roar! Gyarados let out a low roar, and his whole body fell heavily to the ground, raising a cloud of dust. Gyarados, Dragon Dance! John shouted loudly. After Gyarados got up again, he shook his head vigorously, then performed Dragon Dance, and his momentum gradually rose. Electric Dragon, Crazy Volt! While Gyarados was dancing, the electric dragon quickly covered its entire body with a powerful electric current and rushed towards Gyarados. Gyarados, use the tornado to blow the electric dragon away. After the last dance of Gyarados, it swung with all its strength, and a powerful tornado instantly covered the electric dragon completely. The power of the electric dragon was not enough to resist this powerful tornado. After a short while, it was ruthlessly blown away along with some gravel. Gyarados, destroy the Death Ray! Gyarados' destruction Death Ray was becoming more and more handy. A dazzling light shot out instantly, and immediately shot down the electric dragon in mid-air. Electric Dragon loses its combat ability, Gyarados wins, please let Kubo release the next Pokémon. The referee immediately blew the whistle, Kubo took a deep breath, and decisively threw the Pokémon ball. Go, Desert Dragonfly! A dragon-shaped Pokémon with a roughly green body and a hemispherical structure on its big red eyes appeared in mid-air. Gyarados, do you want to continue fighting? John had a chance to change Pokémon, and Gyarados nodded firmly, with a fierce fighting spirit in its eyes, and obviously wanted to continue fighting. Yes. John slapped his head hard, and Gyarados was subdued by Liang Guang's Desert Dragonfly after evolving. At this moment, seeing Desert Dragonfly again, it undoubtedly recalled the scene of its previous defeat, and it could not replace it anyway. Even if it lost, John at least had a Pokémon as a backup. Gyarados stared at Desert Dragonfly fiercely, but Desert Dragonfly, which was flapping its wings slightly in mid-air, was confused, and had no idea what the sudden anger of Gyarados was. It seems that Gyarados still remembers being defeated by Desert Dragonfly. Qunli chuckled with a hint of emotion, and Xiaosheng and Xiaoao suddenly remembered that John had told them about Gyarados' experience after evolution. On the battle stage, Gyarados looked at Desert Dragonfly with increasingly cold eyes, as if he wanted to freeze the opponent. John shook his head helplessly, it seems that Gyarados is getting angrier and angrier the more he thinks about it. Kubo looked at Gyarados in a daze, and he clearly felt that Gyarados' anger was constantly heating up. However, even so, he was still full of confidence in his Desert Dragonfly, and he took the lead. Desert Dragonfly, use Rock Collapse! The Desert Dragonfly made a long, piercing cry, and the sound waves rolled up the broken rocks from the previous battle and smashed them towards Gyarados at an astonishing speed. Gyarados! Blow it away with a tornado! Roar! Gyarados roared, twisted his huge body at a very fast speed, and swung his tail vigorously, knocking down the rocks that were thrown at him. Under the blessing of the Dragon Dance state, coupled with the powerful power brought by Gyarados' anger at the moment, the tornado not only successfully blew away the rocks, but also still had a lot of power left, sweeping towards the Desert Dragonfly with great momentum. Desert Dragonfly, increase the altitude. Then use the Dragon God Dive! Kubo immediately shouted at the top of his lungs, with a trace of cold sweat on his forehead. Too brutal, only using a tornado to greatly reduce the activity space of the Desert Dragonfly. It turns out that there is such a high-level trick. John was secretly surprised, and saw that the Desert Dragonfly flapped its wings vigorously and increased a lot of altitude, and successfully passed the tornado and went straight down. The whole body was covered with light blue flames, and with terrifying murderous intent, it rushed towards Gyarados extremely violently. Gyarados, use Freezing Ray! Ice energy accumulated instantly, and Freezing Ray was fired instantly. Get out of the way! Kubo shouted anxiously immediately. If the Freezing Ray with 4 times the damage hit the Desert Dragonfly, the consequences would be disastrous. The Desert Dragonfly quickly cancelled the state of the Dragon God Dive, and quickly swam in the sky, and the head of Gyarados quickly followed. However, the Freezing Ray stopped soon, and the Desert Dragonfly finally recovered. Continue the water cannon to block the action of the Desert Dragonfly. Come on! Kubo was a little impatient. If this continued, there was no way to get close to the attack. The Desert Dragonfly did not need Kubo's instructions, and it had been dodging the water cannon attack of Gyarados in the air. This would go on endlessly. John looked at the desert dragonfly flying in the air and couldn't help complaining that flying Pokémon was a foul. It simply ignored the scale of the venue and flew wherever it wanted. Ah! John was a little mad. If his baby dragon evolved into Tyranitar, he wouldn't have to be so passive. Gyarados, take this water cannon, and then quickly use the insect's song. Kubo shouted helplessly. The desert dragonfly immediately stopped its original body movement and caught the powerful water cannon. Then, it began to use its own amplitude to launch a strong sound wave to attack. Invisible sound waves continued to spread in the field, and the superpowered Pokémon around increased the strength of the protective circle. After all, in the battle of Pokémon, the principle that always remains is that the audience outside the field must not be injured by mistake. Gyarados, bounce up. John has been waiting for a long time, and he has been waiting for this perfect opportunity. After hearing the command, Gyarados took advantage of the fact that the sound waves had not yet completely spread out, and while resisting the discomfort, the power of its tail increased sharply in an instant, like a spring compressed to the extreme, and it suddenly jumped up. At this time, the insect chirping of the desert dragonfly continued. In order to ensure the amplitude, its body was stagnant in the air, and it could only watch the huge head of Gyarados getting closer and closer. Chapter 86. Gyarados, use Freezing Fang. John shouted at the top of his lungs, and the loud voice was still clear even though Gyarados had already rushed to the sky. The wings of the desert dragonfly continued to flap, but it was not always possible to change the frequency suddenly, and it took some time to adjust. Desert dragonfly, use the dragon claw to knock down the Gyarados. Gyarados, bite the claw of the desert dragonfly. Two instructions came out one after another, and many spectators who had been prepared hurriedly took out their binoculars and stared at the fierce battle that moved to the sky. I saw that the front claws of the desert dragonfly instantly overflowed with rich green energy, which quickly condensed into a huge and sharp dragon claw, and grabbed the face of the Gyarados with a thunderous force. While enduring this fierce attack, the Gyarados suddenly opened its mouth and accurately bit one of the claws of the desert dragonfly. Both sides were suffering from pain, but it was obvious that the desert dragonfly was more seriously injured. Desert dragonfly, use the destruction ray. Gyarados, entangle the desert dragonfly, use the tornado. At such a close distance, if the destruction ray hits it head-on, Gyarados will definitely not be able to bear it. But John had no other choice. He ordered anxiously, and Gyarados quickly swung its thick and powerful tail, tightly trapping the desert dragonfly like a giant python. John is using Gyarados as a snake. Xiao Sheng curled his lips and looked at Gyarados in surprise as he endured the attack, while the desert dragonfly gradually lost its ability to fly, and the two Pokémon fell straight from the sky together. But isn't this a significant effect? Gyarados' body is similar to snake. Xiaoao rarely responded to this topic, but Dad, why would John and the others rather let their Pokémon fall than take them back? She could understand Kubo's behavior. After all, taking it back was equivalent to giving up and losing the game, but John clearly still had a Pokémon. Gyarados is very stubborn. If John takes it back by force, it may distrust John from now on, because John cannot respond to its current mood. Qunli looked at Xiaoao and patiently explained to her with a doting look, what's more, Pokémon's vitality is extremely tenacious. Falling from such a high altitude is just equivalent to enduring a powerful attack. Qunli was right. John deeply felt Gyarados' unwillingness to admit defeat, so he could only watch them fall together. He could do nothing but choose to believe in Gyarados. Bang! After a deafening roar, the venue was instantly covered by a blanket of sand and dust. Everyone was tense and silent, quietly watching the place where the sand and dust were filled. At this time, even the commentator was concentrating on staring at the battlefield, not daring to breathe. The dust slowly dissipated, and the figures of Gyarados and Desert Dragonfly gradually emerged clearly. Gyarados stood up first, roaring, shaking his head vigorously, trying to wake himself up. Its huge body swayed slightly, and the scales on its body flashed cold light in the sun. The desert dragonfly looked extremely weak, its wings drooped weakly, and its body shook constantly. It struggled for several times before it finally stood firm, revealing a trace of fatigue in its eyes. John was a little worried and immediately shouted, "Gyarados, can you continue to fight?" Roar! Gyarados turned his head and looked at John, nodded slightly firmly, and a white mist spurted out of his mouth. "Okay. Gyarados, use the freezing ray!" John shouted loudly. Kubo on the opposite side was not to be outdone, and shouted loudly, "Desert Dragonfly, cheer up, fight back with Dragon Wave." Instantly, a cold blue light shot out of Gyarados' mouth, and the cold air was overflowing, and it seemed that the air was frozen wherever it passed. And the Desert Dragonfly opened its mouth, and a purple dragon-shaped energy wave surged out with powerful force. The two powerful skills collided fiercely in the venue, bursting out layers of gorgeous air waves, and the light was dazzling. Both sides tried their best, unwilling to be outdone, and constantly used up the little remaining physical strength to increase the output. Boom! The strong impact made the whole venue tremble violently, and deep cracks appeared on the ground, and dust flew, as if a small sandstorm was sweeping in. Gyarados, release the water cannon to the back, and use the power of the water cannon to collide. John's voice resounded throughout the venue. Gyarados immediately opened his mouth, and a powerful water cannon gushed out, and then it suddenly leaped up, using the powerful impact of the water cannon to rush towards the Desert Dragonfly like a cannonball. "Is this the final attack?" The audience couldn't help but exclaimed, clenching their fists nervously. "Desert Dragonfly, fly up!" Kubo shouted anxiously. The Desert Dragonfly flapped its wings hard, trying to dodge, but its movements seemed extremely slow and it was too late. Gyarados hit the Desert Dragonfly with a thunderous force, making a loud noise, and the Desert Dragonfly was knocked to the ground in an instant, raising a cloud of dust. The Desert Dragonfly has lost its ability to fight, and Gyarados wins. So the player who advances is John. The referee knew the result after the Desert Dragonfly was knocked away, but he waited until it was no longer moving before announcing it loudly. John ran to the venue excitedly and hugged Gyarados. "Great, Gyarados!" Gyarados was also very happy, his eyes were full of joy of victory, but he didn't hold on for long, and he fell to the ground due to exhaustion. Although Kubo on the opposite side was a little disappointed, he still walked towards John after carefully checking the body of the Desert Dragonfly and stretched out his hand. "Congratulations, this is really a wonderful battle, but it's a pity that I didn't see your next Pokémon." John smiled and shook hands with the other party. "Thank you, Gyarados can't play in the afternoon, you can see it in the audience." After Gyarados won, John was also a little naughty, looking at Kubo's twitching mouth. "Haha, I mean we can put the full member showdown at this KO conference." "Okay. Next time, I will beat you." The audience immediately burst into warm applause, cheering loudly for this wonderful duel, and the cheers were deafening. John took back the Gyarados and immediately walked towards the VIP seat. Xiao Sheng immediately felt a chill. "Xiao Sheng, help me send the Gyarados to the Pokémon Center for treatment." Chapter 87. In fact, the organizers specially arranged staff to help send the injured Pokémon of the contestants to the Pokémon Center. However, John did not look for them. In his opinion, it was more reassuring for Xiao Sheng to do the work. So Xiao Sheng left the stadium cursing, and John took Xia Sheng's seat and began to watch the next game attentively. At nearly 1 o'clock, the whole 16 games had just ended. In order to get as much generous rewards as possible, John insisted on watching all the games, and began to conduct in-depth and detailed analysis of the Pokémon owned by several of them. During the game, John simply ate the box lunch prepared by the organizers for them. After that, there was only 1 hour of rest time left. In the VIP seat, John had listened to too many teachings of Kyun Li. So he took advantage of the remaining 1 hour of rest time to visit the injured Gyarados. Gyarados' injury was not particularly serious, but Miss Joy specifically instructed that although he could be discharged from the hospital in the evening, he must not participate in tomorrow's game. John returned to the central square without any delay and accurately timed it. The 16-8 match was about to begin in the afternoon, and the remaining 16 people all had quite good strength. Among them, the one with the highest winning rate was Divine Beastman, and John was already ranked 8th at this time. From beginning to end, he had only used Gyarados in the game, so that everyone had no idea about the situation of his remaining Pokémon. And Masamune was still not eliminated. Among the remaining trainers, 3 had already shown Pokémon that reached the gym level. At this time, there were only 16 players left in the contestant's seat, and John silently followed behind to participate in the draw. Soon, John's opponent was determined, and it was Masamune. John and him had no communication throughout the game, and he had no intention of deliberately making friends. In John's opinion, if a person like Masamune is too emotional, he will sooner or later send himself to a dead end if he does not have the aura of the protagonist. John once again ushered in the first game. As soon as he stood on the battle stage, the audience burst into extremely strong cheers. Among them, the proportion of female audiences remained high. John shook his ponytail and smiled shyly at them. It seems that you are quite popular, but I will definitely win. Masamune held the Pokémon ball tightly and said confidently. John did not speak, but just smiled and nodded, which was considered a greeting. At this moment, the field draw began, and finally the pointer stopped steadily on the rock field. The referee blew the whistle immediately. Now, the exciting duel of the top 16 begins. The red team is John from Wuda Town, and the blue team is Masamune from Green Shade Town. The game adopts a 2v2 battle mode. Please release your Pokémon. Go, Houndoom. Go, Kyrinki. The first Pokémon sent by Masamune is Kyrinki with general psychic attributes, and John is Houndoom with fire and evil attributes. From the aspect of attributes, Houndoom obviously has the advantage. Well, what kind of exciting duel will they bring us? Let's wait and see. The commentator's passionate and high-pitched voice sounded, and Masamune quickly issued a battle order. Kyrinki, use the impact. Kyrinki's forehooves were full of wind, and he ran like an arrow from a bow. Haraga, vortex of fire. Instantly, Haraga spurted out blazing flames from its mouth, forming a huge vortex of fire, directly trapping Kyrinki in it. Kyrinki, use the light wall. Masamune shouted hurriedly. Then, Kyrinki quickly used the light wall to try to weaken the powerful attack of the vortex of fire. Make a concerted effort, Haraga, use the big character explosion. John took advantage of the victory and spurted out a powerful fire move from Haraga's mouth. The hot flames instantly penetrated Kyrinki's light wall, and the powerful impact directly knocked Kyrinki to the ground. Kyrinki, come on! Masamune began to shout loudly, injecting energy into Kyrinki. Kyrinki was also very motivated and climbed up with difficulty. So what if you stand up, Haraga, use the evil wave. John was merciless. As soon as Kyrinki stood up, Haraga's evil wave hit it again, with significant effect. Kyrinki lost his ability to fight, Houndoom won. John was not surprised by this result. After all, Kyrinki's it is not that strong, it barely reaches the elite level. Masamune's Swampert, like John's own Gyarados, is currently receiving treatment at the Pokémon Center. John, you are indeed very powerful, but I will not lose so easily. I will show my courage. Steelix, go ahead. Masamune put away Kyrinki, frowned, and the spirit of not admitting defeat surged in his heart again. This Steelix can be said to be Masamune's strongest Pokémon. John did not choose to replace the Pokémon, and still let Houndoom fight. Steelix must win, show the dragon breath with full courage. Masamune shouted loudly. Houndoom, dodge and use the jet of fire. John responded calmly. Houndoom reacted quickly, and kept dodging to the side, and waited until the dragon breath of Steelix stopped, and then suddenly spit out the jet of fire. Otherwise, Houndoom's jet of fire would definitely be suppressed by the dragon breath of Steelix. Masamune's Steelix is probably as strong as his own Gyarados. Use digging to dodge. Don't think that Steelix's huge size will make it slow. In fact, at the moment when Houndoom's jet of flames was about to touch it, it had already quickly drilled into the ground. The digging skill can indeed dodge a lot of attacks. John used to do this often before, and it was quite useful. Houndoom, pay attention to the movement on the ground. John hurriedly gave the order, and Houndoom immediately went into alert mode, concentrating on smelling the ground. However, Steelix's speed was amazingly fast. Just when Houndoom found movement on the ground, although it jumped away quickly, it was still pushed out by the head of Steelix that suddenly drilled out from the ground. Houndoom, use the big word explosion. Houndoom quickly adjusted its body shape in the air, and after landing, it did not hesitate to spray the powerful fire-type big move at Steelix again. Steel Snake, use rock blockade to block the big word explosion. Chapter 88. Around Houndoom, several stone pillars rose from the ground in an instant. Houndoom's big word explosion was temporarily blocked by one of the huge rocks. Under the continuous impact of the blazing flames, it finally broke through the obstacle of the rock. At this time, Steelix had already quietly moved to its side. Houndoom, adjust the direction, Steelix is on your left. After hearing John's voice, Houndoom reacted and adjusted the direction. But it was too late. Facing the big word explosion, which was already insufficient in energy, Steelix resolutely chose not to dodge, and relied on its own extremely hard body to bear it. For a moment, the flames shot up into the sky, and Steelix's huge body was instantly wrapped in blazing flames, but it was already close to Houndoom. Steelix, use Steel Tail! Steelix's tail instantly flashed with a dazzling white luster, sweeping towards Houndoom with a thunderous force. Although Houndoom tried his best to dodge, he still failed to avoid it completely. He was swept by the steel tail and was blown away along with the surrounding gravel. Steel Snake, don't stop, keep attacking. Use self-sacrifice attack. Masamune was so excited that his face turned red, waving his arms and shouting. Steel Snake launched a fierce charge towards Houndoom again. After Houndoom stood up, although he tried his best to dodge, he still couldn't dodge in time. He was hit by the attack again and fell heavily to the ground. Houndoom has lost his ability to fight, and Steel Snake wins. The referee immediately announced loudly. Thank you for your hard work. It's up to you next, Bankiras. John took back Houndoom and threw Bankiras' Pokeball. The field quickly boiled up. Although Bankiras was not as eye-catching as Latios, it was the first quasi-god to appear after all. As soon as the domineering Banguilas appeared, he attracted countless fans, and the commentator was even more excited. John's second Pokémon is the powerful Banguilas. How will Masamune deal with it? I won't admit defeat, Steelix, use your powerful dragon breath. Fight back. Banguilas did not hesitate to directly resist Steelix's dragon breath. After the attack, its power was over, and a powerful evil attribute wave suddenly came out. Steelix, get out of the way. Unfortunately, Steelix failed to successfully avoid this wave of attacks and fell to the ground. Banguilas, use Earthquake. Banguilas's left foot stomped heavily on the ground, and the ground shook violently. Steelix still persisted after being attacked again. Ground-based skills are very effective against Steelix. Although Steelix's physical defense is amazing, the power of an earthquake cannot be underestimated. Steelix, don't lose, show your steel tail. Masamune can only launch the last attack with all his might. If he can hit Bankiras, he may still have a chance. But how could John give Masamune hope of a comeback? Bankiras, use the Destruction Beam. Although Steelix's defense is amazing, Bankiras' power is not in vain, not to mention that the two Pokémon have their own level differences. The Destruction Beam burst out almost instantly, knocking Steelix to the ground directly, and the powerful impact force pushed Steelix to the edge of the field. Steelix has lost his ability to fight, Bankiras wins. John is the one who advances. The referee looked at the unconscious Steelix and shouted immediately. John's Bankiras showed a shocking strength, easily defeating the powerful Steelix, and won the game without suspense. John successfully entered the top 8, let us extend our sincerest congratulations to him. At the same time, we also give respectful applause to Masamune. The commentator's passionate voice sounded again in the stadium, and the audience also cooperated with their warm applause. I didn't expect that I lost so thoroughly, but the next battle in the Keiho conference, the victory must belong to me. Masamune's face was a little unwilling, but his eyes were more determined. Let's work hard together. Unlike Masamune's passion, John just responded to him lightly. The game ended and John entered the top 8. If he can continue to win tomorrow morning, there will be another battle in the afternoon, and the finals will be scheduled for the day after tomorrow. John was always thinking about the Gyarados who was being examined, so after waving to Kunli and the others from a distance, he hurriedly left the central square. In order to receive Gyarados as soon as it finished its inspection, John had a simple dinner at the Pokémon Center. However, just halfway through his meal, John found two people slowly walking to the seat opposite him. Hello, nice to meet you, my name is Nyx. My name is Hirano. A man of the mythical beast? John was startled and couldn't help but look up, nodded slightly to the newcomers, and then looked at them curiously. They each took their dinner and sat down opposite John slowly. My name is John. John quickly finished the last bite of the meal, then slowly put down the chopsticks in his hand. Excuse me, what can I do for you? You are very strong, and your Banjuras is also very good. Nyx said with a smile. Although John's attitude just now was a little neglectful, Nyx was not angry at all. He exuded a mysterious aura, but unexpectedly, his attitude was particularly friendly. It's a bit presumptuous, but I want to ask, do you want to go on an adventure with us? As soon as Nyx finished speaking, he saw John frowning, so he immediately changed his words. Or, accept my reward, and then you can leave first after the work is done. I want to know what it is specifically? And why did you find an elite trainer like me? John stared at them closely with curious eyes. This man named Hirano was also a trainer who entered the top 8. Among his Pokémon, there is also a Super Iron Tyrannosaurus that has reached the gym level. I am looking for a place where there is a mysterious ruin. After consulting a lot of information, I learned that it takes 6 Pokémon to open this ruin, and Banguilas is on the required list. Nyx ate the ramen in front of him elegantly, and explained slowly. There are many trainers of Banguilas, why did you find me? John's eyes were full of doubts, and he did not agree immediately. Chapter 89. I have my own standards for choosing partners or hiring people. This explanation was not much better, and John still frowned. Or, do you have the idea of exchanging Pokémon? Nyx looked at Hirano on the side, and saw that he took out 2 Pokémon balls without hesitation and put them on the table. Then, Nyx also took out 2. These are Dream Demon, Charizard, Armored Bird, and Super Iron Tyrannosaurus. Each of them has the strength of a gym level. You can choose any one to exchange with Bangiris, and I will give you an extra 5 million alliance coins. This sentence was said by Hirano, and his local tyrant temperament was instantly exposed. The Pokémon they showed also surprised John, and his heart could not help but surge. With that said, he seemed to be at the bottom of the game. Is this league conference so scary? And it seems that they don't take these powerful Pokémon seriously at all. Why do they want Bangiras so much, just to open the ruins? What is hidden in the ruins that is worth their unremitting efforts? John's heart was filled with countless questions. Gyarados has been cured. We'll talk about it next time. John suddenly stood up, pointed to the name on the screen in the hall with his right hand, and left quickly. 5 million and gym-level Pokémon in exchange for a Bangiras, to be honest, is enough, but John did not agree. Obviously, these 2 people were unwilling to tell him. Maybe it was because John was not a partner, but would anyone really agree directly? What if he didn't have the ability to do this? Hirano was stunned, his eyes followed John's figure as he left, but he was not discouraged because John was not the only one. Hirano, try again. It's rare to meet a trainer of Bangiras when you come out. Nyx's words rang clearly in Hirano's ears. Hirano couldn't help asking. This guy is not strong, maybe we can find another one. Let's see if he has the conditions. If he is too strong, can you and I still get the things in the ruins? Besides, I am determined to get it. Nyx has changed to a calm tone at this time. Hirano listened and thought carefully and felt that it made sense. That's right. The strongest of the trainers we contacted before is only at the gym level. Originally, you and I each get what we need. You want Pokémon, and I want the things inside. Until John's back completely disappeared from their sight, they simply ate a few mouthfuls of food, then picked up the plate and slowly left. Gyarados was sleeping quietly at this moment. After a careful test, Miss Joy said that maybe when Gyarados wakes up, it will be able to successfully break through the gym level. John got Gyarados' Pokeball, and only then did he happily leave the Pokémon Center. Perhaps, when Gyarados wakes up, he will be able to become a gym-level trainer, and the league will pay him 150,000 yuan a month. There is a big difference between gym-level trainers and elite trainers. According to statistics, only 1 out of 10 elite trainers can become a gym-level trainer. Having reached this level, if the league is preparing to set up a new gym, John is already eligible to sign up. However, what John cares about most is the invitation from Nyx and the others. This matter has always been deeply in John's heart. He really wants to agree to the employment, but he still has some worries in his heart. He is alone and has no one to rely on. Before he has enough strength, he must be cautious when facing some groups and organizations. After returning to the Orange Gym, John threw all the Pokémon into the warm greenhouse, and then returned to his own room and quickly turned on the computer. He quickly searched for relevant information about Nyx and Hirano on the computer. Nyx might be a quasi-king or king-level Pokémon trainer. Since Hirano can team up with him, his own strength must not be too bad. However, on the official website of the Home League, it is impossible to find accurate and detailed information about them. The information of the contestants is usually public, but they only came to register for the league meeting a few days ago. Apart from that, there is no other valuable information. A new day came, and after completing the draw, John was surprised to find that his opponent was Hirano. When it was his turn to compete, John stood steadily on the battle stage, and the game began. "Go, Houndoom!" John shouted. "Haunter!" Hirano's voice sounded. "What's going on?" Hirano has at least 1 elite and 2 gym level Pokémon in his hands. Why would he use a normal level Haunter at this time? John was full of doubts. "Houndoom, Jet Flame!" John relaxed his frown. Since the other party was willing to let him go, John naturally didn't need to be polite. "Haunter, Shadow Ball!" Jet Flame and Shadow Ball collided with each other, and the fierce energy collision directly caused a huge explosion. Haunter took the opportunity to rush into the thick fog immediately. "Houndoom, use the big word explosion on the thick fog!" John commanded decisively. Houndoom's strength is far better than Haunter. The big word explosion hit Haunter head-on, and the effect was very significant. Haunter was directly forced out of the thick fog, and many burn marks appeared on his body. Haunter has lost his ability to fight, and Houndoom wins. The referee's voice sounded. The referee didn't even want to take another look at this ordinary battle, and blew the whistle directly. "Cocodora!" Hirano released the Pokémon again. "Another ordinary Pokémon?" John looked at Hirano, whose expression did not change at all, and confirmed his guess. Until the end, Hirano released an elite Mount Goat, but even so, it was still defeated by Houndoom. The audience felt that this game was boring, and some people even suspected that John had bribed Hirano to win. Hirano walked slowly towards John and said, "Victory is irrelevant to me. You should need a prize more." Hirano didn't wait for John to reply, and gently patted his shoulder, then strode out of the field. John didn't think there was anything wrong with it. After all, the other party didn't even blink when he took out 5 million alliance coins at once. I guess the prize is really not important to him. As for feeling insulted, this situation does not exist. In John's opinion, winning is enough. He didn't care about Hirano's show of goodwill. Anyway, the decision was in his hands. Chapter 90. Qunli had seen the clues long ago, but he didn't believe that John would spend money to bribe Ping Yi. However, he couldn't interfere with John's affairs. As long as John didn't go astray, that was enough. The current battle was going on very quickly. There were only 4 battles. Except for one that showed a crushing trend and one that was suspected of letting the opponent win, the other 2 only lasted for more than 10 minutes. So, around 10 o'clock, the top 4 players had been determined. However, the organizers obviously thought of a countermeasure. They invited the Pokémon dance troupe from the Hone region. The remaining time was cleverly turned into a wonderful dance performance in which humans and Pokémon participated together. Although people in this world also chase stars, and more than half of them chase Pokémon trainers, these Pokémon dance troupes still occupy a small market of their own. There are also groups such as Pokémon circuses, singing groups, and actors. It was also the first time for John to watch the performance so closely. They performed the cooperation between humans and Pokémon to the extreme. Almost just a slight expression or a brief glance could perfectly echo each other. Of course, the Pokémon participating in the performance abandoned training because the focus was on performance rather than battle. Most of them were at the initial and ordinary levels. Suddenly, John, who was watching the performance to relieve his mood, trembled without warning in his heart. The pop music and beautiful dance played on the spot suddenly stopped as if the pause button was pressed. He felt like he had turned into a Pokémon, slowly opened his eyes, and slowly raised his head. What came into view was the familiar greenhouse of the Orange Flower Gym. "John, what's wrong with you?" Xiaoao, who was sitting next to him, kept shaking one hand in front of John's eyes. "Shh." Qunli immediately stopped Xiaoao's behavior. He keenly felt that John had entered a special state. After a long time, John suddenly stood up and said, "Excuse me, I want to go back to the Orange Gym." After saying that, he immediately ran towards the Orange Gym without hesitation. Gyarados. After entering the greenhouse password, John saw at a glance that Gyarados was already quietly waiting for him at the door. Sure enough, the induction just now was Gyarados, but what was the state just now? Whether it was the anime in the previous life or what I learned from books, only a small number of humans have special abilities, such as the power of waves, the power of Changpan, superpowers, etc. Could it be that he also awakened an incredible power? The ability to remotely sense Pokémon, referred to as induction. No, this is not the point is Gyarados. You broke through. John hugged Gyarados in surprise, and it also responded happily to John, trapping John tightly and rubbing his face intimately. It's just that Gyarados looks too ferocious. If it was melodic, John might be happier. This thought just appeared in John's mind, and Gyarados immediately bit John's head in dissatisfaction, venting his emotions. Do you know what I'm thinking? John knew that Gyarados would not really hurt him, so he pushed Gyarados away and asked curiously. Gyarados nodded, and John gently stroked its body, feeling Gyarados' emotions with his heart. Let's go out to see. Gyarados, who broke through to the gym level, mastered a new trick, and John was eager to try it out. Anyway, there were still 3 or 4 hours before the afternoon battle, and John had completely forgotten Miss Joy's instructions. In the afternoon, John arrived at the competition venue almost on time, and he was the only one left in the contestant seat who had not arrived. The host had been actively livening up the atmosphere. Seeing John, he naturally shifted the audience's attention to the semi-finals. Unconsciously, this commercial competition has attracted a lot of attention. Of course, the biggest contributor is Nyx. After the draw, John was unlucky to be drawn to play on the rock field. Ah! Xiao Sheng sighed deeply, John is going to lose. Indeed, John has no way to defeat Nyx Latios at the moment. Qunli also nodded and said. On the battle stage, Nyx stood opposite John and said lightly. John, in cultivating Pokémon, in addition to talent, money, and luck, I hope you can make a decision before I leave. I hope to know more information. John thought for a few seconds and replied. Nyx nodded and threw out Latios. Go, Hound! Latios, Dragon God Dive! So fast! Only when he really fought with Latios did he know how fierce its attack was, as a Quasi-King or Divine Beast. Hound, use the Evil Wave. Go around behind it. Latios, with an afterimage, instantly came behind Hound and ran straight into it. Hound lost its ability to fight, Latios won. The referee immediately raised the flag and blew the whistle. Go, Bank IRAs! Although he was defeated in one blow, John was not discouraged and sent Bank IRAs to fight again. Bank IRAs, raise the sandstorm! Countless strong winds and dust were everywhere, and Nyx could not see the situation on the field at all. He could only try to squint his eyes to break this state first. Otherwise, in this state, it would be impossible to attack Banguiras, and the opponent would have a chance to attack Latios. He is different from Hirano. He must let John see his powerful strength so that he will not have any wrong thoughts. Banguiras, Rock Blade. Use high-speed movement to avoid it. Countless pieces of stone condensed and surrounded Banguira's body. Each stone blade attacked Latios like a small cannonball. Latios exerted his speed to the extreme, and Banguira's attack was completely in vain. Use water waves indiscriminately in the sandstorm. Nyx gave a decisive order. Latios could not see Banguiras, so he threw a few water waves into it. Banguiras, stand still and use the destruction death light directly at Latios. John seized this fleeting opportunity and let Banguiras use the destruction death light without hesitation. The powerful energy instantly broke through the water wave and hit Latios directly and accurately. Banguilas himself was also affected by the water wave, but fortunately he had adapted to water attacks. He just felt a little uncomfortable. Chapter 91. Latios's pained voice was heard in the air. Even though the beast's physical strength was amazing, it was still effective against the quasi-god Benjuraz's destructive death light. Self-regeneration. The golden light covered Latios, and the damage just caused seemed to be restored instantly. John was shocked. The speed was too fast, worthy of being a beast. But not everyone can complete self-regeneration in such a short time. Without absolute confidence, it is easy to be knocked down by combos. Latios, use Tornado to break the sandstorm. Latios dived rapidly, then turned around and rose rapidly, rotating while rising. The violent wind of the tornado directly broke the sandstorm. Nyx took the initiative again. It was really difficult to fight without removing the sandstorm. Latios, Dragon Wave. Banguiras, use Dark Wave to meet back. Latios slowly suppressed Banguiras, but it was not particularly obvious, after all, it was only a Quasi-King. The aftermath of the explosion of the two skills shook the entire venue violently. The damage of the Quasi-King level Pokémon is extremely explosive, and normal league meetings will not encounter Pokémon of this level. After all, the league meeting is the largest entry-level trainer competition, and there are also regional championships, King Challenge, and the like above. Although it was only suppressed a little bit, Latios did not hit Banguiras and did not cause effective damage to it. However, it is difficult for Banguiras to win if he is always suppressed by Latios. This is also the advantage of flying Pokémon, and Latios is extremely good at speed. Banguiras can only rely on long-range attacks to consume, but he can't hit Latios, which makes him very passive. Not bad, John, a gym-level Pokémon can resist Latios for so long. Nyx praised generously. Then Nyx quickly gave instructions: Latios, move at high speed, use Phantom Light to aim at the field under the feet of Banguilas. Nyx didn't want to capsize in the gutter, so he immediately seized the opportunity and suppressed Banguilas with all his strength. Latios' speed advantage was fully utilized, flying quickly while launching attacks, and Banguilas had no way to deal with it. The role of the trainer is reflected in the command aspect. He also perfectly utilized the advantages of Latios, cleverly avoiding disadvantages, and trying to find Banguilas' weaknesses. Such a combat strategy will never be understood by untrained Pokémon. They rely more on instinct to fight, which is the significant difference between the two. Banguilas has no way to avoid it. Its body is too bulky and can't hit Latios, so it can only be forced to take a defensive posture. The dust on the ground blown up by Latios' attack completely covered Banguiras. Latios, Wave Missile. Nyx found the right opportunity and released a fighting attack without hesitation, calling Banguiras hard. Banguiras, use defense. The fighting tricks have extremely high damage to Banguiras, with a damage coefficient of 4 times. If Banguiras uses tit for tat to withstand this attack head-on, he may lose his combat ability directly. As for digging a hole, it won't work either. Even if he dodges the wave missile, John doesn't dare to bet that Latios doesn't know the ground trick, which will undoubtedly push Banguiras to a dead end. Boom! A huge deep pit appeared on the ground, and Banguiras struggled to defend against the wave missile attack. It's not over yet, Latios, keep using the wave missile. John, who thinks he has excellent self-restraint, couldn't help but swear. If he uses it continuously, he will fail. MMP. Don't its wave missiles have CDs? Banguilas, give it a try, fight back. Banguilas was also very angry, and he roared immediately, gathering all his evil energy and bearing the attack of the wave missile head-on. Fortunately, Latios could only launch one wave missile at a time, and Banguilas gritted his teeth and endured it, and then began to fight back. Unfortunately, Latios was too fast. After the wave missile hit Banguilas, he ran away quickly. The last blow, Dragon God Dive. Latios was covered with blue energy, shaped like blue fire, and fell towards Banguilas at high speed like a meteor. Even if Banguilas held on tightly, he still couldn't resist this powerful attack. As the pit continued to grow, Banguilas fell heavily to the ground. Banguilas has lost his ability to fight, Latios wins. I give up. As soon as the referee's voice fell, John raised his hand without hesitation. Why? You should have more than these 2 Pokémon, right? What about Gyarados? Nyx asked calmly. In fact, he knew in his heart that the result would not change. He was just asking politely. They are not your opponents. There is no need. John shook his head. Gyarados' injury has not fully recovered. Moreover, he has no shortage of Quasi-King or King trainers to practice with. There is no need to make Gyarados more injured. Oh. So he can only stop in the semi-finals in the end, but he will have another battle tomorrow to confirm the 3rd place. If he wins, he can get a prop, although it is the leftover. John gave up the game, so the winner of this battle is Nyx. Oh, what a pity. If Gyarados can play, maybe he can defeat Latios. Xiao Sheng looked at Latios, who was already panting in the air. The continuous high-intensity attacks also made it a little tired. After all, the Quasi-King level Pokémon is not King level, and the gap with Gym level Pokémon is not too obvious. Only when it reaches the King level, it is a qualitative leap. John left the battle site. Although he chose to give up, the wonderful battle between Banguiras and Latios made the audience enjoy it. The scene couldn't help but burst into a deafening cheer. As soon as he left, Hirano came over, and Nyx accompanied John to the Pokémon Center. John has full confidence in tomorrow's battle. The first battle after Gyarados' breakthrough must be won steadily. John, we can only tell you that the location is on an island in the Orange Islands. The time is still uncertain. We need you to help open the door to the ruins, that's all. What if I want to go in and explore? Walking on the road, Hirano has begun to briefly tell John about the general situation. Chapter 92. If you want to go in, you can, but we don't need to pay you anything. Nix looked confident and full of confidence in his own strength. What's more, no one else knew what precious things were inside. Hirano also added, you are not the only one who wants to go in together. There are also 2 trainers who have shown interest. However, after entering, it depends on your ability. The Pokémon Center arrived soon. John handed Houndoom and Bank IRAs to Miss Joy first, and Gyarados needed to be rechecked. After being scolded by Miss Joy, John came back to find Nix and Hirano. They had already found a seat in the hall. Nix, Hirano, I agree to go with you, but I also want to explore. After John came over, he decisively agreed. Fortunes are sought in danger, and he himself also needs a rare opportunity. Okay, tomorrow's winning item, if you don't need it, I will give it to you as a token of our sincerity in cooperation. Nix nodded. In this way, he could go back and wait for the opening time of the ruins. As for the home league conference, he just participated on a whim. Thank you. John was not hypocritical. After all, carrying items is something that can only be encountered by chance. Many trainers have no way to make their Pokémon successfully carry such precious items. John just picked up a bargain. Only Houndoom had the item. After leaving the contact information, John said goodbye to them and returned to the Orange Gym, and Kyun-Li was waiting for John. What was rare was that he actually set up a table in the greenhouse with 2 cups of steaming coffee on it. John, has your Gyarados broken through the gym level? Kyun-Li had already guessed it, and that was right. After all, this was his territory, and it was not easy for him to know any information. Yes, Mr. Kyun-Li. Speaking of Gyarados, John's joy was obvious. He walked over quickly and sat down in front of Kyun-Li. You should know that Pokémon have talents, right? Kyun-Li picked up a cup of coffee and gently placed it in front of John. I know that some Pokémon can't break through their own upper limit throughout their lives. John said affirmatively after taking a sip of coffee without being polite. This is also common sense, but how to know the talent of Pokémon is always a mystery that is difficult to solve. Just like quasi-gods, as long as they reach the final evolution, their strength is usually gym level. But there are also some quasi-gods who can directly touch the threshold of the king level as soon as they evolve, that is, the quasi-king level. In the case of Magikarp evolving Gyarados, it directly leaps from the initial level Pokémon to the elite level, but those with good talents can also directly become gym level. Therefore, John's Gyarados talent can only be said to be average. The most famous one is the shiny Gyarados, also known as the red Gyarados, which was captured by Dew. When it was captured by Dew, it was at the gym level, but in less than a year, it was directly promoted to the king level. This does not rule out that Dew has a top breeder to help him behind the scenes. Just like John, by stimulating the dragon energy and evil energy in Gyarados, the flying and water types with ordinary talents can break through their talent limitations in one fell swoop through superimposed attributes. It has been more than 2 months since Gyarados evolved, so John's method is correct and effective. It is also through this successful case that John is more looking forward to the strength of his baby dragon after evolution. John, to be honest, you surprise me more and more. Although he has never asked about John's breeding method in detail, the significant improvement in strength is obvious to all. Who can believe that John has just reached the threshold for starting a journey 2 months ago, but the initial elite level Pokémon has indeed made him beat 99% of the trainers. I just tried all kinds of things with limited funds, but fortunately, at least it succeeded. Is the fund enough? Kyun-Li asked with concern. He was increasingly looking forward to where John's limit was. It's enough. I have dug a lot of ore during this period, and the main Pokémon I cultivated are Gyarados, Baby Dragon and Bank IRAs. Well, although it's not good for Wolfhound, but if they want to reach the level of Gyarados, they will spend many times more money and effort. Kyun-Li looked at John with satisfaction. He was most afraid that John would start training all the members now, which would be a big problem for civilian trainers. Is the most taboo. Why do we only test 2 Pokémon when assessing the trainer level? Because the cost of training Pokémon is unimaginable for ordinary people, and many trainers mainly train 2 or 3 Pokémon, and only train other Pokémon when they have the energy. Do you know how to reach the threshold of the king level? After a moment of silence, Kyun-Li suddenly said, and John looked at him with a hint of surprise. Specialization. You can learn one trick of other systems, and then you don't need to learn too much. You have to focus on cultivating the specific attributes of Pokémon. From your current Pokémon training situation, you can choose the direction of evil or dragon. Your current 3 Pokémon that you focus on training, except for Baby Dragon, which is a dragon Pokémon, Gyarados and Bankiras can learn a lot of dragon tricks, which means that they have high dragon energy in their bodies. It's the same for evil, and your Wolfhound has evil attributes like Houndoom. Kyunli said a lot in one breath, and then drank the coffee in front of him. The hyperactive ape behind him immediately came over carefully with a cup of freshly brewed coffee in John's surprised eyes. John didn't say anything. In fact, he has been trying recently. He just accidentally learned some training methods he saw in anime and succeeded by chance. Specialization? Dark or Dragon? Dark is okay. Gyarados has dark attributes after Mega Evolution. With Bankiras, Wolfhound, and Houndoom, he has reached the level of special training. Dragon will completely disrupt his plan. Although Gyarados and Bankiras have dragon energy, they are not genuine dragon Pokémon after all. Dodo, I suspect you are insinuating me. Moreover, the training funds and energy of dragon Pokémon are too much. If the return is not very high, no one will invest a lot of money and time in it. Chapter 93. John. Kyunli looked at John's tangled look and spoke to pull his thoughts back. You just have 2 gym-level Pokémon now, and there is still enough time to think about this problem. Yes. John bowed deeply to Kyunli. Again, if you don't understand anything, you can ask me. Mr. Kyunli, I hope you can give me some advice in the next 2 days. Use your main Pokémon to let Gyarados know that they still have a long way to go. Kyunli crossed his arms, looked at the serious John, and nodded, okay, but you have to be prepared. I will take you out for 3 days tomorrow afternoon. After 3 days, you can set off. Okay, it's time. If it weren't for this event, I can't wait. Wait until you come back, and then go to test the gym level Pokémon trainer level. There is no battle at the gym level. But the trainer's experience in cultivating Pokémon, command ability and ability to survive in the wild must be tested. John looked up at Kyunli with surprise in his eyes, so simple? Then survive in the wild? No, the experience in cultivating is part of the written test, the command ability is to make corresponding commands through computer simulation battles, and survival in the wild requires walking to another city and tracking the whole process through positioning. So simple. John felt quite surprised. After all, elite level trainers still have to test their Pokémon, and the gym level test feels much easier. Those who can reach the gym level are already the key support targets of the Alliance. This explanation is reasonable, after all, they have entered the ranks of masters. But is it really necessary to survive in the wild? What John didn't know was that some trainers were the type who practiced hard behind closed doors. The League's approach was also to let them go out more, otherwise if they stayed in their own territory, wouldn't it be a waste of money to support them? After the conversation, John returned to the room. Tomorrow, the person who will compete with him for the 3rd place is Aiken from Kikyo City in Chengdu. He carefully studied the Pokémon that Aiken had already appeared. Among them, only a gym-level Lizard King deserved special attention. The next day, the sky was clear and the sun shone on the battlefield, shining brightly. The duel between John and Aiken was the first battle. After the comeback of Gyarados, it was full of momentum and easily defeated Aiken's 2nd Pokémon. Now, John has lost Houndoom, and Aiken only has the last Lizard King left. For some reason, the induction between him and Gyarados has weakened again. Now he can only feel Gyarados' excitement. Gyarados, use water cannon to say hello. John said easily. Lizard King, use Sunshine Flame to respond to it. Aiken commanded without giving in. The powerful water cannon ejected by Gyarados and the sunlight flames emitted by the Lizard King's energy collided and offset each other, stirring up a burst of water mist and light. Gyarados, Dragon Wave. John smiled slightly. The attack just now was just a test. He knew that the Lizard King was not very powerful, and its advantage was mainly in speed. Lizard King, get out of the way. Ah Chang shouted anxiously. The Lizard King showed its incomparable speed advantage, jumping around in the field. Gyarados' Dragon Wave could not hit it at all, and it dodged it flexibly again and again. Use the seed machine gun. It was obvious that Ah Chang was not a person who liked to fight without fighting back. He seized this fleeting opportunity and started to fight back. Gyarados, use a tornado to blow the seed machine gun away. John commanded calmly. Gyarados swung its tail fiercely, and a powerful tornado whizzed out instantly, immediately smashing the dense seed machine guns into pieces. Ah Chang frowned. Gyarados' defense was too fierce. Although Lizard King was fast, it was still difficult to get close to Gyarados. Lizard King, keep moving around the field and use high-speed movement. Ah Chang shouted immediately, with a hint of anxiety in his voice. Lizard King immediately began to spit out various attacks quickly while moving around the field like the wind. John hated such fast Pokémon the most, and it was difficult to hit the skills accurately. Gyarados, let the tornado fill the whole body and cover the entire field. John ordered decisively. Lizard King, use the blade. Lizard King still appeared behind Gyarados despite the resistance of the strong wind, and slapped it with a sharp blade. However, its speed was obviously much slower, and John immediately issued an order. Gyarados, Lizard King is behind, use the water tail to block it. Lizard King, step on Gyarados' tail and jump up, use the slap attack. Although the speed was reduced, Lizard King still took advantage of Gyarados' tail, jumped hard, jumped to the top of Gyarados' head, and used a fierce slap. Roar! Gyarados screamed in pain, but more of it was anger after being provoked. Another sunshine flame! Aiken shouted loudly. The speed of Lizard King was indeed quite agile. After the attack, it quickly opened the distance again. As soon as the wind stopped, it immediately began to charge. Gyarados, use the Destruction Death Ray. John gave a decisive order. Gyarados' Destruction Death Ray does not need to be charged, unlike the Sunshine Flame. Soon, the powerful attack rushed to the front of Lizard King. The Sunshine Flame was finally released, causing a huge explosion in front of Lizard King. The smoke filled the air, obstructing vision. Gyarados, use Bounce, and use Self-Sacrifice Attack. John commanded without hesitation. Gyarados quickly rushed into the smoke and began to ram wildly and indiscriminately until a green figure was knocked into the air. Gyarados, use Freezing Ray to end the battle. John gave the order again. In mid-air, Lizard King had no way to avoid the attack, and was directly frozen into an ice cube by Freezing Ray, and then fell down. Lizard King lost his ability to fight, Gyarados won, so the third-place trainer is John. The referee announced loudly. Ah Cheng smiled bitterly. He knew in his heart that John also had a strong Banjuras. If it weren't for meeting Nyx yesterday, John might have won the second place. But losing is losing, and he lost with conviction. He really didn't expect Gyarados' attack speed to be so fast, and he also suffered a loss due to carelessness. However, even if he defeated Gyarados, he could not change the final facts. Chapter 94. Sister, John won the third place. Xiao Sheng was so happy that he danced with joy and jumped up excitedly. Xiao Yao also smiled and shouted happily for John. Because the rewards for the third and fourth place are very different. Although John got what others left, it is better than nothing. Even if he can't use it, he can still exchange it with others or sell it, and he can also get a good profit. The finals also began. Nyx still used Latios to fight. After only a few minutes, the three Pokémon of the opposing trainer had all lost their combat ability. It was obviously the finals, but this duel was not as exciting as the final for the third place. What a pity, if John hadn't met Nyx first, maybe he should have been the second place. Xiao Yao couldn't help but sigh. Qunli and Xiao Sheng looked at her in surprise. Xiao Yao reacted, and a blush quickly climbed up her face. She quickly turned her head away from them. Xiao Ao is right, but the competition is like this. Who knows who you will meet first? If you have the strength of the second place, but you meet the first place in the first match, the result will be the same. Qunli pretended not to see Xiao Ao's reaction, coughed lightly, and said slowly. Generally speaking, the league will not allow such a situation to happen. That's right, when selecting trainers, the league has already ranked the strength of each trainer, and will not let strong trainers meet each other in the early stage. Therefore, the opponent of each trainer has actually been decided long ago. This practice is generally called a secret operation, but the league will never admit it. Qunli will definitely not say such things, which will only affect the growth of his children. Next, it is the award ceremony. The props placed in front of John and the other two were carefully taken over by the organizer. The camera followed the whole process. After all, this is the highlight of this event, so there can be no negligence. In front of everyone are mysterious water drops, black belts and awakening stones. In terms of price, the price of the awakening stone is a bit higher, but Nyx chose the mystic drop without hesitation. It happened that the second place was a trainer who focused on fighting-type Pokémon, and he chose the black belt without hesitation. John was forced to get the awakening stone, but it was okay, at least this stone was not as common as the fire stone. Of course, the number of Pokémon that can evolve with it is also very small. Give it to you, as a token of our sincerity in cooperation. After Nyx walked off the stage, he found John. I will notify you when the ruins are almost open. John took the mystic drop without any pretense, because after Gyarados carries it, the power of the water-type trick will be greatly increased. I will do what I promised you, but the premise is that it cannot be done within a month of the start of the Keiho conference. It won't take that long, don't worry, we won't participate in the Keiho conference. Nyx said lightly, and Hirano took over, let's go, otherwise another group of people will come to you later. Well, goodbye. Nyx waved to John, and John nodded. It seems that many people from the Alliance have come to talk to Nyx recently. The attraction of Alacios is really very high. If you don't have the strength of a king, it's better not to show it easily. After all, in this world, good people occupy the majority, but it can't be said that there are no bad people. It's just that under the strong control of the Alliance, the proportion of them is much less. John, go back to eat, and then start special training. Kyunli slowly came over after John and the others talked. He was still sincerely happy that John had met a powerful trainer. John, congratulations! Xiaoao and Xiao Sheng also came over and said happily. John looked at Xiaoao in surprise, wondering, didn't she dislike Pokémon battles? In fact, Xiaoao couldn't suppress her happiness because she could leave home for a trip in 4 days. There are many small islands in the sea area of Chinjua City, and John's last exploration only touched the tip of the iceberg. This world is far more vast than I imagined, and this is just one of the areas. John rode Gyarados out to sea, closely following the figure of Pidgeot in the sky, which was Kyunli's main Pokémon. Along the way, they met many boys and girls who rode Pokémon out to sea. When they saw Gyarados, they saw the huge and majestic figure almost showed an expression of envy or fear. There are not a few Gyarados in the world, but the wild ones are almost all in groups. Although there are many Magikarp, only 1 in 1,000 can reach the evolution standard. The Pokémon under them are actually quite strong. If their own strength is average, going out to sea is simply a way to death. The sea is not short of Pokémon, and most of them come out in groups to find food. It was not until about an hour that they finally arrived at an island. There are many Pokémon living on this island. Kyunli's special training is to let John adapt to life in the wild. Including the training of the trainer, in 3 days, Kyunli will let his Pokémon control the wild Pokémon on this island to attack John. If it is not only 3 days, John may have to adapt for a longer time. After all, powerful trainers are almost all able to endure loneliness, and it is very normal to live in the wild for a year or 2. Gyarados, use Water Tail. Roar. When the last sharp-toothed fish was driven away by Gyarados, this pool temporarily became Gyarados' territory. Bangiras stood on the land, and his powerful momentum had already driven away many wild Pokémon. It seems that we must camp here tonight. John took out his backpack. Fortunately, when he went shopping with Xiaoao some time ago, he had prepared various ingredients and energy blocks in advance. He began to sort them, mainly according to the attributes of the Pokémon. For example, Gyarados, Bangiras, and Baby Dragon use advanced ones, and the other 3 use ordinary ones. There is not enough money, so I can only train Gyarados and the other 3 first. After unified classification, John began to build a tent. They ate while guarding the surroundings. Kyunli would not take action in the first 2 days. After all, this island is so big. If he wants to take action, John will just surrender directly. The gap between the two is not a little bit. Chapter 95. Now that there are no wild Pokémon attacks, John began to arrange the most basic training for them. Gyarados' speed in water is pretty good, but its movements on land are relatively slow, and it can't fly without Mega Evolution. Try to use it in a water environment. There is a waterfall in front of it, so it can practice climbing the waterfall, which can effectively strengthen its physique. Put the mysterious water drop on Gyarados and let it start practicing. Bank IRAs increased the weight and ran around to patrol the territory. The main task of fighting against wild Pokémon was given to it. Houndoom, Wolfhound, and Toucan also have their own tasks, almost all of which are related to patrolling the territory, which can be regarded as helping bank IRAs. In the past 3 days, John focused his main energy on Gyarados and Baby Dragon. Baby Dragon, John vaguely felt that it seemed to have signs of evolution. It has been fed with so many energy-rich foods, and its growth rate is extremely fast. Now it has exceeded the average weight and height. It is a bit difficult for John to hold it. Fortunately, it has been sleepy recently and has not stayed outside often. Most of the time, it has been in the Pokeball. After customizing the physical training and skill training for Baby Dragon, John began to carefully read the notes that Kyun-Li gave him in the afternoon. Specialization. Although he has just reached the level of gym-level trainer, John has begun to think about the subsequent development direction. There is only one thing that his Pokémon are the same, that is, high explosive power. The attack power of Gyarados and Bank IRAs is much stronger than that of ordinary Pokémon of the same level, and the same will be true for the future Tyrannosaurus. The speed is not satisfactory. Bank IRAs John intends to give up the training in speed. If it develops in speed, it will definitely become a 4-legged beast, neither high nor low. Gyarados can also improve its speed underwater, and in the future, Tyrannosaurus can also be trained in this direction in the air. They themselves knew that John often instilled this concept in them, not requiring all-round development, but to maximize one ability. As for specialization, it depends on what kind of Pokémon they will encounter later, which can replace these 3 elite ones. In short, their team has not yet been fully formed, and only 3 have been confirmed. 2 hours have passed, and it seems that Kyun-Li is planning to let himself have a good rest for the afternoon. However, John took the initiative to come here for special training. Since wild Pokémon don't come, then go find them yourself. Leaving Gyarados to continue training in the camp, John began to set off with the remaining 5 Pokémon. Harrod in front, Wolfhound in the back, make full use of your sense of smell to find nearby Pokémon, bank IRAs, you are responsible for deterrence, Toucan, it has been hovering over our heads, report immediately if there is any situation. Baby Dragon waited for a long time, but John still didn't mention it. It pulled John's trouser legs in dissatisfaction and pointed at itself with its little finger, as if saying, "What about me?" John touched its head, "Baby Dragon, you will go up directly in a moment, and Bang Eyeless will be behind you." It nodded with satisfaction, and then its eyes immediately became sharp. Along the way, it casually sent away several Pokémon that suddenly popped out, and handed them all to Baby Dragon to practice and increase its combat experience. After all, combat is also an important way to improve strength. Without experiencing combat, even if you grow up, you have a strong strength, but you can't use it or are afraid of combat. No matter how strong such a Pokémon is, John will not want it. Without the heart of a strong man, it is destined not to become a strong man. Just walking and stopping, passing through the woods, and soon came to a piece of grass. The big Wolfhound and Houndour were already grinning, and then many wild Pokémon appeared from all directions, surrounding John. There were magic mushrooms, long-nose leaves, poison roses, magic mushrooms, and parasitic mushrooms, a total of hundreds. Almost all of them were initial level and normal level Pokémon. Facing John's gorgeous lineup, they still stared angrily. The toucan immediately descended because it was also targeted by a group of swallows that emerged from the tree. Bank IRAs took a step forward and roared with full momentum. The less courageous wild Pokémon had already fled in all directions. Let's start. Bank IRAs is by my side. If any Pokémon dares to approach, I will attack. The Wolfhound will assist the toucan to fight swallows, and Houndoom will assist the Baby Dragon. The Baby Dragon quickly found a long-nose leaf and launched an attack, and Houndoom quickly followed, driving away other Pokémon that wanted to besiege the Baby Dragon. The Wolfhound bared its teeth and stared at the sky, and the toucan immediately flew down, pulling the prideful swallow into the attack range of the Wolfhound. Bank IRAs carried John on his shoulders domineeringly, staring at the front, and his tail slapped the ground from time to time, scaring away the Pokémon that were about to attack from behind. Kyun-Li was attracted by the huge movement here. He rode on Pidgeot and looked at John in astonishment in the air. Good guy, he was still preparing for the follow-up special training arrangements, and he couldn't wait to start looking for wild Pokémon to fight. He couldn't help but smile at the corner of his mouth. This is good, at least he is very serious about the 3-day special training. That's fine, when he takes the initiative to challenge, I will play the role of protecting him. Until he rests at night, how can I harass him again and let him sleep peacefully? On the ground, Baby Dragon has knocked away several Pokémon. At present, it has only learned the Dragon Breath trick, and the rest are sparks, collisions and rocket headbutts for attack. Hound is even busier. Fortunately, there are almost all grass Pokémon around, and it is very intimidating when it starts to fight. The Wolfhounds seem to be fighting hard. There are many Ogre Swallows, and they don't have the electric tricks. But after being knocked down, Ogre Swallows quickly woke up and continued to fight. John and Bank IRAs seemed much more relaxed. After several failed sneak attacks, no Pokémon dared to approach easily. Bank IRAs hadn't rested for long when two figures quickly jumped out from the trees behind him and used the tile-splitting technique on him at the same time. Bank IRAs, use the defense. A solid protective shield quickly appeared around Bank IRAs, tightly surrounding John. The tiles hit the protective shield directly. No matter how hard they tried, they couldn't shake the solid protection. They turned out to be two elite Pokémon, the Cunning Tengu. It seems that they should be the boss of this wild Pokémon group. Chapter 96. John had been keeping Bank IRAs from attacking because he was afraid of intervening in the fight between Baby Dragon and the others. After all, Bankeras's ultimate move was extremely destructive. And since he was almost caught last time, he began to be extra cautious when attacking in the wild. The two Cunning Tengu still refused to give up and attacked Bank IRAs again. Fight back! John lightly jumped back, and Bank IRAs used his hard armor to withstand their attacks, and then bounced back the damage. The two Cunning Tengu were bounced out by the powerful force, but soon stood up again. Hearing their calls, the wild Pokémon that were restrained also retreated behind them. What were they doing? After losing their opponents, the Wolfhound and the Toucan had returned to John's side. Except for the Baby Dragon, which wanted to continue fighting, it was bitten on the head by Houndoom and dragged back, completely ignoring its struggle, and chattering in its mouth. But looking at Houndoom's helpless expression, it's probably not a good thing. The two Cunning Tengu looked at each other and bowed their heads to Banguilas. Banguilas walked over slowly and patted their shoulders humanely. What the hell? Has Banguilas become their boss? The two Cunning Tengu began to say something to Banguilas non-stop, but John didn't understand a word. But Banguilas kept nodding his head and looked at John from time to time. Don't agree to anything on your own initiative. John was a little speechless and kept complaining in his heart. Finally, Banguilas came over, stretched out his short arm, scratched his hard head, and showed a simple expression. Are they going to recognize you as the boss? John asked immediately, and Banguilas nodded affirmatively. You agreed. Banguilas shook his head, then picked John up and put him on his shoulder to sit. Many wild Pokémon finally cheered, and John pointed at himself. Am I the boss? A series of nods made John feel funny. Humans became the leaders of wild Pokémon? This is really a rare thing. Forget it, there are quite a lot of them, so they can be distributed around the camp to prevent attacks that may come at any time. John waved his hand, and hundreds of Pokémon followed John in a mighty manner, moving their territory. It just so happened that there were no traces of other wild Pokémon around John's camp, and they happily took root in the surrounding trees to make their homes. However, John would not prepare food for them and let them solve it themselves. John did not take the elite-level Cunning Tengu seriously. This was not his favorite Pokémon either, so it would be better to let them continue to protect their tribe after he left. As night fell, everything was still calm. John had already started a fire and started cooking. Gyarados was very tired after a whole afternoon of special training. Its whole body was still in the water, but its head was exposed on land, looking at John eagerly. John threw a few high-level water energy cubes into Gyarados' mouth, and it immediately chewed quickly, and finally burped with satisfaction. Baby Dragon. The exhausted Baby Dragon looked at John with lifeless eyes. As the youngest child in the team, it has always been a favorite of the team. Not only John doted on it, but all the Pokémon in the team would give in to it in everything. John was really afraid that it would be spoiled, so he called the Wolfhound and Houndoom to come together. Tonight I decided to add a pound to your training. Big Wolfhound, Hound, you are responsible for hunting Baby Dragon. Baby Dragon, you just run. If you can keep going longer and longer, your dinner will be doubled. At first, he showed an unsatisfied look, but after hearing the last sentence, Baby Dragon instantly became excited and started running quickly. In just 2 minutes, he was caught by the big wolfhound. John cooked and recorded the time. Tonight's dinner is baby dragon's favorite grilled fish. In order to get more, he also worked very hard. Banjuras looked at the three noisy partners, sighed, and started weightlifting training. Don't ask how John brought these things, his backpack is so magical. Until John fell asleep, Kyun-li still didn't know where he was. However, there are more and more magical things around John's camp. The baby started to move. Dozens of giant hornets appeared in the sky. The strange thing was that they all held a stone until they came to John's tent. Looking at the sleeping Pokémon below, they immediately put down the stones in their hands. The Wolfhound and Houndour were the first to sense the danger, but the stones had already fallen. Bangiras and Gyarados quickly opened their eyes. These stones were almost no threat to them. But John was different. Bangiras quickly protected the entire tent under himself, and John was also awakened by this sudden attack. Before he had time to think more, he saw a faint fire. He immediately got out of the tent. Gyarados had already fired a destructive death beam into the air. It was too dark, John couldn't see what attacked him at all, but the first wave of attacks had already begun, so the next wave of attacks should be almost here, right? Until half an hour later, John was already yawning, and there was no sign of the second wave of attacks. He had been cursing Kyun-li in his heart. This was not a special training for Pokémon, but a punishment for him. He could not hold on any longer, but started the shift system. Gyarados and Wolfhound were in one group, and Bangiras, Houndour, and Toucan were in another group. Let them take turns to keep watch, but Baby Dragon never woke up and was still dreaming. Kyun-li, who was staring at John's camp with a telescope in the distance, showed a barely noticeable smile on his face. This time in the early morning was just when people were in deep sleep. The perception of the outside world was the weakest, and it was also the time when people were most likely to be agitated after being woken up. This was the effect he wanted. In his opinion, the improvement of Pokémon was not difficult, but the strength of the trainer himself was difficult. Only with the strength to deal with various sudden situations at any time can one lead his team to continuous progress and move to a higher level. Then, he rode Pidgeot and came to his camp again. Pidgeot began to chatter and tell the leaders of several more powerful tribes on the island about Kyun-li's plan in detail. Chapter 97. Pokémon's vision is much better than that of humans. The division of labor of each group is very clear. Some are specifically watching the situation in the sky, and some are patrolling carefully around. Hundreds of wild Pokémon around also took action. They are used to this kind of vigilant life. After all, in this disorderly wilderness, the probability of being attacked by other tribes at night is much higher than during the day. Roar! Gyarados roared, waking John up from his sleep again. He walked out of the tent quickly with dark circles under his eyes. The sky was filled with yellow powder, and he immediately shouted. It's paralysis powder, Gyarados, use a tornado to blow it away, pay attention to the control range, don't blow your partner away. Gyarados received the order, and immediately emitted a strong airflow, which quickly filled the entire camp, and suddenly a strong wind raged. Bangiras held John and Houndour, and the Wolfhound immediately ran to the periphery to be on alert. The Toucan flew into the air and began to chase the poisonous butterflies that released the paralysis powder. The paralysis powder was blown away in a short while. John yawned loudly, then relit the fire and looked at the time. It was only 4 o'clock in the morning. He felt like a burden. Otherwise, with the ferocious habits of wild Pokémon, they would have chased them madly and sprayed all kinds of tricks into the sky. It can be seen that they were also aroused by the continuous attacks. John sighed and simply did not sleep. He took out the food in the backpack and started cooking. They could not rest well at night, so they could only use food to replenish their physical strength. As the first ray of sunlight pierced the cover of the night, day and night alternated, and the second day of special training officially kicked off. After a night of rest, the baby dragon rubbed his sleepy eyes and walked out of the tent slowly. It was too tired yesterday, otherwise it should have woken up immediately when the first smell of food entered its nose. It sat next to John without conscience, pulled John's clothes, pointed at the grilled fish, and then opened its mouth. John looked at it unhappily, but did not stop his hand movements, and stuffed the grilled fish into its mouth. Houndour lay beside John, its ears kept shaking to sense the movements around it, but its eyes were staring at the grilled fish that should have belonged to it, but now it has become the food of the baby dragon. What a good life! But Houndour did not dare to show any dissatisfaction, it believed that it would have a share of the next grilled fish. After 3 attacks in one night, although no members were injured, they were always alert to the surrounding situation, which made them feel physically and mentally exhausted. After an unknown amount of time, the toucan suddenly landed from the sky. John immediately looked at it. "Are you making any noise?" The toucan immediately flapped its wings vigorously and nodded quickly. "It seems that the attack is coming again, but this action is too obvious, right?" Herod and the wolfhound stood guard in front and behind John. In their opinion, protecting John was the most important thing. Since John couldn't understand the language of Pokémon, he didn't know where the attack came from this time, or how many there were. He could only keep the same rustle. There was already a slight movement in the haystack, and there was more than one place, as if all around were approaching this side. This little movement directly frightened the wild Pokémon stationed in the tree, and they all moved towards John. Gyarados popped out of the pond, and Bangiras also stopped training, staring at all directions with his bright eyes, and they were also preparing to launch an attack. The sound was getting closer and closer. John clearly felt that this time the Pokémon had no footsteps. This kind of sliding sound should be a snake Pokémon. John immediately looked at his companions and nodded, indicating that they could take the initiative to attack. Gyarados took the lead and released a powerful water cannon from his mouth and began to sweep forward. Bangiras raised a sky full of dust, covering the surroundings in a world of wind and sand. John had already launched an attack, and the shadows in the grass began to move quickly. The first thing that caught his eye was a series of purple figures about 2 meters long, and the last one was a few purple figures 3 or 4 meters long. It was Arbok and Arbok. Their bright red snake tongues kept spitting out of their mouths, and their eyes exuded a bloodthirsty light. On the other side, spherical Pokémon kept spitting out black smoke. This time, there were gas bombs and double gas bombs. Compared with the Arbok tribe, the team led by the cunning Tengu was more inclined to deal with the gas bomb side. The gas bomb tribe was directly held firmly by the cunning Tengu, and the Gyarados alone suppressed the Arbok tribe. Their strength was not strong, and only one leader reached the elite level. John was a little confused. It shouldn't be just like this, and the 3 waves of Pokémon that attacked last night were definitely not these 2 tribes. It must not be that simple. Sure enough, dense black shadows appeared in the sky again, and a group of giant bees immediately appeared in the air. They flapped their wings quickly, made extremely aggressive movements, and then swooped down rapidly. Under the sunlight, the sharp weapons on their arms were dyed golden. The sandstorm continued to rage, and when they came into contact with the sand and dust, they suffered a lot of damage. However, even so, the beedrills still did not retreat, and continued to charge forward fiercely. When John and the others were attracted by the beedrills, a dozen sand hippopotamuses and a huge hippoman suddenly jumped out from the ground. This sudden attack frightened John severely, and his first reaction was to immediately climb onto Bangiras' body with his hands and feet. Baby Dragon was full of fighting spirit. After being frightened for a short time, he began to sprint forward the next second. After seeing that the boss Bangiras had steadily protected his trainer, the Great Wolfhound and Houndoom also rushed forward quickly. The Great Wolfhound faced the powerful hippoman, and Houndoom kept solving the threats behind the courageous Baby Dragon. John kept giving orders, and his eyes scanned back and forth between the 3 battlefields. He kept shouting out orders, taking care of the 3 battlefields, and for the first time felt that his energy was very insufficient. Fine beads of sweat began to appear on his forehead, and his brain was working rapidly, trying to keep his mind clear. However, he was getting more and more excited. This was real combat, full of variables and unknowns, not a one-on-one fair battle mode. This chaotic and challenging situation made his blood boil, and his inner fighting spirit was completely ignited. Chapter 98. Fortunately, there were only 4 waves of attacks from the tribe. Kyun-Li was merciful and did not go too far. He did not arrange a hellish start right from the start. Gyarados relied on its natural advantage in the water to constantly dive to avoid Arbok's poisonous needle attacks. And the tricks it used were just conventional water tricks such as Water Cannon and Water Wave. After all, these Pokémon were entrusted by Kyun-Li to train them, not mortal enemies, and Gyarados knew this. Bangiras fought dozens of beedrills alone, and the raging sandstorm protected its body tightly. Although its extremely hard armor can effectively protect itself from being hurt by beedrill's sharp weapons. But it also shouldered an important task, which was to protect John's safety, so it did not dare to be careless at all. The battle situation on Baby Dragon's side seemed a bit chaotic, and the hippo was chased by it and fled everywhere. Other hippo members wanted to come up to help, but they were immediately restrained by the experienced Hound. Hound is an old veteran who has been on the battlefield for a long time. Even if he doesn't use fire-type tricks, he still has many powerful tricks to use. The battle between Hippomon and the Wolfhound was indecisive. If John had timely and effective command, the battle would soon tend to be one-sided. But John couldn't pay attention to it all the time. Later, seeing that the Wolfhound was not in any danger for the time being, he simply ignored it and let it play freely. In the distance, Kyun Li sat leisurely on the ground, and the cute lazy man Wang held the telescope for him obediently. While he closely watched the direction of John through the telescope, he began to record seriously with a pen and paper. Half an hour later, the invading Pokémon was finally driven away in a panic. On the one hand, he could not destroy the forest environment, and on the other hand, he had to do his best to resist their attacks. John said that he had never experienced such a thing. If he was really beaten by wild Pokémon in the wild, even if Miss Juncha saw it in person, there would be no trouble. "Hello, are you doing special training here?" Just now, Houndoom and the Wolfhound had been staring at the person who suddenly appeared in front of them. "My name is Kama. I heard the movement here, so I hurried to see what was going on." John was doing 3 things at once, and he was a little exhausted at the moment. When he heard the sound, he immediately turned his head to look over. I saw a sloppy man whose age could not be seen. He had been standing 10 meters away from him. Next to him stood a Maine rock wolf, Knight, staring at them with lifeless eyes. "I have no ill intentions, I am just practicing on this island." Seeing that all the Pokémon here were on guard, John also looked alert. He immediately stopped and said that he had no ill intentions. "This is my ID." The big Wolfhound quickly stepped forward and took his ID. John took it and looked at it carefully. "Are you the second place winner of the last KO conference, Gama?" "Yes." He touched his head embarrassedly. "I didn't expect that besides the champion, someone else could recognize me." After feeling that John was not very alert, he also tried to walk forward carefully 1 step, 2 steps, and finally successfully arrived in front of John. "My name is John." "That's right. Kyun Li didn't say that there were only them on this island. It's not far from Chinjua City. It's not surprising that there are other trainers practicing here. Well, I haven't had a hot meal for a long time. Can I come to your place for 2 meals? Don't worry, I will never be stingy with the money I should spend." "Ah!" John suddenly realized that he was concentrating on grilling fish just now. "Banjaras! You blew it away. There is no trace of grilling fish here now, even the fire has disappeared without a trace." Banjaras embarrassedly held his head with a simple face. John didn't really want to blame it, but he was hungry now. "Haha!" Kama suddenly laughed out loud, "Isn't it more interesting to have these things happen during the journey?" "But Kama, the resources here are not scarce, how come you don't have food to eat?" Coming back to his senses, John felt a little strange. Kama looked up at the sky, pouted and said helplessly, "Because I can't cook." "Can't cook and run to the wild alone to repair, okay?" John was too lazy to complain about him. The Wolfmane also touched his stomach and sighed deeply to his trainer. John saw it all. "Don't tell me you didn't even prepare Pokémon food." Then he took out a bag of rock-type Pokémon food from his backpack and threw it to the Wolfmane. "If you don't mind, this portion is for you." A bag of Pokémon food is very cheap, and John was not stingy. Of course, he kept a watchful eye. What if this guy was also called thousands of miles to test himself? The Wolfmane didn't even mean to ask his trainer, and bowed his head to John to express his sincere gratitude. Then it happily took the food handed over by John, sat aside and ate it happily, completely ignoring the anxious Kama on the side. "Well, I still have a few Pokémon. It's embarrassing to say that they are hungry too." Looking at Kama's sloppy face, John could clearly feel his inner shame. He tried to restrain his urge to laugh and enthusiastically invited him to have lunch together. However, he did not prepare much Pokémon food. These were just for emergencies. In the wild, John preferred to collect ingredients and cook by himself. Anyway, there are energy cubes and nutrients for energy, so there won't be any problems. "Great, everyone come out." 5 more Pokémon jumped out of the Pokeball happily. They are Venusaur, Fiery Cat, Sea Lion, Proud Pheasant and Strike Ghost. Almost all of them appeared in the KO conference, and John further confirmed his identity. "So many Pokémon from the Alola region? Kama, are you from the Alola region?" "No, I'm a trainer from the Kanto region, from Pallet Town. Pfft! John spat out a mouthful of water. It was the first time he met a trainer from Pallet Town. Chapter 99. To express my gratitude, please tell me when you leave. I will treat you to a big meal when we arrive in Chinjua City. After lunch, Gama put his hands together and said sincerely. You just want me to take you back, right? John wiped his lips stained with oil stains, looked at Gama with a firm tone, and looked at him suspiciously. Is it so obvious? By the way, don't you have a sea lion? After John finished speaking, Sea Lion turned his face away proudly and took the food to the other side. To be honest, I came here on Sea Lion, but it likes diving too much. A water gun was fired and hit Gama directly. John looked over and saw that he had already flown 10 meters away. After eating and drinking, John certainly did not forget the purpose of his coming here, which was special training. The tasks were assigned according to yesterday's arrangement. Now there was one more person. Kama took a fancy to bank IRAs and forced him to fight bank IRAs. John would definitely disagree. After all, his Bulbasaur was very strong and had probably stayed at the gym level for a long time. Once the battle started, it would not only destroy the forest, but what if Kyunli allowed wild Pokémon to attack again at this time? He didn't want to rely on outsiders for help, so John drove him out on the grounds of special training and only gave him a meal in the evening. After noon tomorrow, he would also go back, and then he would travel. He had been waiting for a long time. However, Kama's strength was also very strong, worthy of the second place in the Keiho conference. Jia, who I met some time ago, was probably as strong as him. However, this kid's lineup was too messy, and each Pokémon had different attributes. He was still a long way from becoming the king. At dusk, the yellowish sunlight shone obliquely on John, bringing him warmth, but at the same time, it also made him feel a little irritable. The whole afternoon seemed unusually calm, which was a bit too much, right? Could it be that Kyunli really found a comfortable place to take a nap and overslept? After seeing John's bored look, Gama once again approached John and proposed that his fiery cat fight John's baby dragon. This was purely a friendly match, and his fiery cat had been captured for a long time. This fiery cat was extremely lazy on weekdays, either lying on the ground or lying on a tree to rest leisurely all day. The western lion sea wren that was captured almost at the same time has now reached the elite level of strength, but the fiery cat is still developing slowly and leisurely. Until now, it is only at the ordinary level of strength, and John's baby dragon is also at the ordinary level of strength. Although it was just a friendly match, there had to be a winner. Baby Dragon had rarely met an opponent of equal strength to practice with him these 2 days, and had long forgotten about sleeping. Compared to the ease and leisure here, Gyarados and Bank IRAs were still tirelessly exercising their physical strength, and only the 3 Pokémon such as the Wolfhound kept sensing the surrounding situation. After dinner, John quickly divided the groups and asked everyone to take a rest. At this time, Gama proposed to go out for a walk. John didn't say much, and just like that, after Gama had another full meal, he left without looking back. The forest was unusually noisy at night, even though only John's own team and the men that Bank IRAs had conquered for him were around. However, there was a lot of noise in the distance, as if it was the most exciting hunting time at night. Of course, all this had nothing to do with John. The news that Gyarados and Bank IRAs appeared here had already spread far and wide. With these 2 powerful Pokémon here, who would be so stupid as to come here and die? John fell asleep early. He had only slept for 3 hours last night, and he was already exhausted and could hardly hold on. I don't know how long it took, but there was a slight movement in the surrounding grass, and 2 vague figures quietly appeared in one place. The big wolfhound just glanced at it casually, and then turned around and moved to another place. John didn't sleep very deeply, and the little movement made by the big wolfhound successfully reminded Houndoom who was resting in the tent. It hurriedly arched John's cheek. John opened his eyes instantly, nodded gently, and Houndoom immediately crouched down, waiting for the other party to attack in advance. At this time, Bank IRAs was lying on the side next to him, snoring, and Gyarados was swimming freely in the pond. It was a short distance from the tent was several meters away, but its attention was not on this side. The 2 shadows sat around the tent very naturally, without causing any movement. In the tent, John had already prepared everything, and time seemed to stand still at this moment. Kama waved his hand, and the main rock werewolf moved swiftly, and its sharp claws quickly approached the tent. The next second, its claws were bitten tightly in the mouth of Houndoom that jumped out of the tent. This movement instantly alarmed Gyarados and Bank IRAs, but their attention was completely attracted by the situation on this side of the tent. Bank IRAs was the closest, and he stretched out his huge claws directly, ready to grab Kama. Several tough vine whips emerged from behind Kama and tied Bank IRAs tightly. Gyarados was also on the water, and was washed away from its original position by a powerful water cannon. Kama didn't expect John to react so quickly. He took out a sharp dagger and stabbed the tent fiercely. How could John let him destroy his tent? He rushed out and hugged his waist. The two of them were thrown out fiercely. Kama, it's you. Kama released the strike ghost, the proud pheasant and the fiery cat again. Beside John, the wolfhound and the toucan, two elite cunning Tengu appeared at the same time. It shouldn't be, didn't the wolfhound leave immediately after seeing me? Kama raised the question in his heart, and then looked at his watch. It's only 11 o'clock in the evening. It shouldn't be suspected to come back at this time, right? Actually, I thought at the beginning that you were just a trainer who practiced on the island, but you knew who I was from the first time you saw me, right? John patted the dirt on his body and questioned. Is my acting too bad? Kama frowned, looking puzzled. No, you acted too naturally. On this island with almost no people, no one knows each other. You trusted me too much. John said with sharp eyes, staring at Kama. Chapter 100. But unfortunately, you guessed wrong. I don't know you. John was smiling, and Kama shook his head slightly, then suddenly pulled his clothes hard. As if a miracle had come, Kama changed his clothes in an instant, wearing a blue headscarf on his head, his clothes became a black and white striped t-shirt, and his pants changed to blue. Are you from the water fleet? John's smile instantly faded, his expression became extremely solemn, and he stared at him closely. What on earth is going on? John's heart was like a huge question mark, full of doubts. Kama put away the dagger that reflected a faint light in the dark night, and whistled softly. Then, another person dressed exactly like Kama walked out slowly. This person smiled and took out 3 Pokémon balls calmly. Come out, Megalodon, Golduck, and Tyranitar. As soon as the words fell, except for Megalodon, which quickly ran into the pond to help Siren fight against Gyarados, the other 2 Pokémon stood firmly beside their trainers. If they are the water fleet, what about Chili? John shook his head vigorously, trying to stop himself from thinking about this question. He gradually began to concentrate and carefully analyzed the current situation. At present, there are only these 2 trainers who claim to be the water fleet, and a total of 9 Pokémon have appeared. Among them, except for Venusaur, Striker, and Tyranitar, which are gym level, the rest are elite level, and Infernape is only a Pokémon at the ordinary level. The situation is not much different from his own side, not to mention that he can mobilize these wild Pokémon to participate in the battle together. Bang Ilis, break free from the vine whip and raise the dust. John's order came very abruptly. Gyarados, be serious, it's the enemy. Gyarados, who had been playing with the sea lion at the beginning, still acted at ease and relaxed even after Megalodon joined. After all, 2 elf-level Pokémon are not a big threat to the gym-level Gyarados. After hearing John's order, Gyarados roared, swung his tail vigorously, and raised a lot of water splashes, finally starting to take this battle seriously. Bang Ilis used all his strength to break free, raised a sandstorm, and then hit Bulbasaur with a flower-breaking death ray. Crocodile, go help Bulbasaur! Another member of the water fleet shouted loudly, and Crocodile quickly stepped forward and ran over. Cunning Tengu, gather the combat-capable companions like Parasaurolophus, and then you 2 go to help Bank IRAs. John gave the order eagerly, and the 2 nodded without hesitation. After looking at each other, one of them jumped away decisively, and the other came to Bankara's side at a very fast speed. Even if they can't fight against Tyranitar head-on, as long as they can be restrained, it will be fine. Gotha Duck, you also go to fight Gyarados. Gyarados is too strong, and the battle has become one-sided. Golduck first launched a powerful water gun, successfully attracted Gyarados' attention, and then ran over at a lightning speed. Then, John also ran over, ready to command the battle himself, only to see him frowning and shouting at the top of his lungs. Big Wolfhound, use Shadow Ball to stop the action of the water fleet. Strike Ghost, use Tile Break on Shadow Ball. Kama suddenly gave an order, and the Strike Ghost was so fast that it instantly blocked in front of another person, raised its explosive arm, and chopped it down hard, hitting the Shadow Ball heavily to the ground. Then it quickly jumped away to prevent itself from being injured by the explosion of the shadow ball. Proud pheasant, you swallow return. Toucan, you deal with the proud pheasant. Toucan heard the order and took action immediately, flying into the air with the proud pheasant, and a fierce battle began. Several ordinary level Parasaurolophus and long-nosed leaves gathered around John, and at this moment he only had the big wolfhound to guard him. Although Hound had the upper hand in the fight against the main rock werewolf, it could not take it down for a while. And next to Kama, there was a gym-level strike ghost waiting in full battle, which made John feel a sharp increase in pressure. He had no way to distract himself from directing other battles, because if he was not careful, he would be caught by the enemy using the strategy of capturing the leader first, and he might even lose his life. Attack the ghost, use 2 kicks. Big Wolfhound, use your iron tail to block it. The big wolfhound tried its best to resist, but the raging flames actually shot out by the back of Moyen's head. I don't know when the fiery cat hiding in the dark suddenly made a move. Its sudden attack caught John off guard. He relied on his keen sixth sense to lie down on the floor next to him. John was just a little bit away from being hit. He had no time to feel scared and rolled several times quickly. Several ordinary wild Pokémon beside him were instantly enraged. John was their boss. The other party's behavior was simply too disrespectful to them, so they sprinted over at full speed. Strike the ghost, get rid of the big wolfhound, and help the fiery cat fight off these parasitic mushrooms. The striking ghost knocked the big wolfhound aside with force, and then quickly came to the front of the fiery cat. With a sharp move, he smashed the parasol mushrooms one by one. Big wolfhound, use the wave of evil. After the big wolfhound stood up, it shook its head quickly, and then immediately opened its mouth, and a stream of black energy instantly spurted out. When the big wolfhound left John, the next moment, Kama didn't give John any chance to breathe. He took out the dagger again and swung it at John viciously, apparently wanting to start a close combat between humans. John was frightened and his scalp numbed, and he dodged quickly. Fortunately, he dodged in time, and only a long cut was hung on his clothes. But Kama didn't give John a chance to breathe, and still waved the dagger and chased John. On the other side, Gyarados' previous advantage was gone after another member of the water fleet and Golduck joined the battle. It could only fight with its strong fighting consciousness and instinct. Sensing John's inner tension and the fear of death, Gyarados roared and instantly burst out with unprecedented powerful strength.